Order at 6:30 on October 8th, 2024. So, fresh off special town meeting. Seems like it was a long time ago. What is this, 1 week later? Okay, chair's report. So the chair's...
Public comment?
Oh, sorry, public comment. And Lisa's here. Sorry, Lisa, I did not do that on purpose. So,
Thank you. Lisa Braccio, 13 Oregon Road. I'm here speaking as a citizen. I wanted to just take a few minutes, Kathy, and just briefly touch on what took place, the magic that took place in this town this weekend, and share a lot of thanks that needed to go around. So this is one of the avenues that I'm hoping to reach people that may have donated as well, that aren't on social media, that may see. So we all know what happened with Hurricane Helene and the devastation that it caused. And on Thursday, we were hoping to try to put something together. And then Thursday morning, we were looking for a truck. Nothing can happen without a truck. And our good friends at Ted's of Fayetteville, you know, local Southborough family, been here forever, does amazing, amazing things for the town and for the communities. So Michael had a conversation and said, I'm in. What do we got to do? So it just kind of ran from there. Heath Wittes got involved and arranged boxes. You know, I was like, my boxing person that we'd used in the past is no longer in Southborough. So in a matter of 2 days, getting the word out and coming together. First, thank you to Mr. Purple for quickly giving us use of the senior center. Without that, again, this couldn't have happened. So Saturday morning came, and I'm going to try not to cry as I do this. Hundreds and hundreds of people showed up, people that gave from their hearts. Ted's Towing arranged in the towing community, asking people to sponsor pallets. He showed up Saturday morning with 12 pallets to start us off. The truck was a 53-foot trailer. It was a steady stream of people coming in and out and truly giving from their hearts. We are so blessed and so thankful to live in this town with the generous hearts of all of the people that live here. Everybody wanted to do something, Kathy, but I believe you just need to provide them the opportunity, and that's what a group of us did. So I'd like to thank everybody that came. I'd like to share a little story or two of that, what happened this weekend as well. There was a young lady that showed up who's from North Carolina. Her family was affected. She couldn't get down there to them. Not only did she bring items, but she thought enough of the truck drivers that were going to be heading straight down to bring them a goodie bag with some snacks for the ride. A little girl whose grandmother came earlier in the day. Grandmother went home, told her granddaughter what happened. This little girl went in her room, not only went to the kitchen and took a bunch of things from her mom, but she brought some very personal things to her that she thought somebody down there might need, might be able to use. There was a little Bluetooth speaker that she thought, if you don't have power, everybody's finding ways to charge their phones. Maybe somebody could play music that would bring comfort to everyone. So magic truly happened here in Southborough. I know I'm going to leave out thanking people, but I will say happily the truck left at 5 o'clock. It was filled. 2 hours to go. We were trying to find ways to make the pallets a little bit taller so we could make sure that everything fit in. So many wonderful goods came, so many wonderful people. The truck got down there at 7:30 Sunday morning. I got a call from the track. They went to North Wilkesboro Speedway. I got a call from the woman running it at the track, crying. They had a truck that was waiting to go to the western part of Western Mountains of North Carolina for well over a day, possibly leading on to a day and a half. And they were looking for the specific items that she had asked us to collect. So what they did was they brought truck to truck, they loaded truck to truck, and by noontime, that truck was on the way to the Western Mountains, and she emailed me Monday night to say all the items were already distributed as well.
who were you talking to at that point?
The representative from North Wilkesboro Speedway in North Carolina.
Okay.
Deanna Parsons is her name. And just amazing to think of the good that so many people that we're never going to know the people that are touched by this. And little sleepy Southborough, I like to say, you know, could do something so amazing for so many. So again, anybody listening and that donated or took the time to volunteer, just know from the bottom of my heart and from all of the hearts in North Carolina, thank you so much. So that's it. Thank you, Kathy. Sorry, one more thing. This was a big one if I forgot to thank this. I'd like to specifically call out the DPW, Bill Cundiff, Chris Leroy, and Tammy Rice for getting the word out and being there for anything that we needed. So if I would be very badly remiss if I didn't say that. Thank you.
So Lisa, good job as usual you do. I'll just add to this, that's my neck of the woods. I was actually down there that weekend. And what I still don't think has quite gotten through in what I read in the papers news is that you're talking Appalachia, eastern Tennessee, western North Carolina, that's Appalachia. That's hillbilly elegy country. And the people, now, Asheville's a little bit different. Asheville's fairly affluent, but they got slammed. But all these other places, these are really mountainous places. There's only, one curvy road up. I mean, I spent hours and hours and hours on those roads when I was in school. So it's going to take a long time, and these poor people that truly didn't have much to begin with, now have nothing. And a lot of them don't have any insurance, especially for floods. I mean, you didn't used to get flood there. So thank you very much, Lisa. This is your forte for sure, so thank you.
Takes a good
And I'm
group.
glad you told the story about where it ended up, because I was always worried that, because Blue Ridge Parkway's out, I-40's out, so I didn't know how they were going to get the trucks there, but it sounds like they've got it all set up nicely, so good.
They did, and I will just add that at North Wilkesboro Speedway, they're working in relation with Samaritan's Purse, the Wilkes County Emergency Management, and actually FEMA staging at the track as well.
Yeah.
So, and there was some videos that were shared on social media of people that were there to unload the trucks that were just saying, we have enough MREs that we certainly don't need any more of that, but, what you sent is exactly what we needed, so.
I mean, there's all kinds of conspiracy theories on social media I've heard, and, criticizing FEMA. I mean, FEMA is down there doing a fabulous job.
Well, clearly they're giving them MREs because they don't want any more of those.
Yeah.
But thank you anyway. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Okay. Debbie?
Hello. I have two public comments tonight. I think you're going to ask me to wait until the topics, but I just wanted to check. One is on the Chestnut Hill CSA, and the other is on the ARPA discussion. Would you like me to wait until that discussion?
Yes, we would.
Yes. okay.
Sorry.
Well, I just wanted to confirm that you'll call for.
Well, but now, are you really going to say much about CSA? It's a members report, so we don't normally comment on members report.
Yeah, my report was going to be fairly brief.
Okay, so go ahead on the CSA. We're definitely going to have a good discussion on ARPA.
Okay, I'll do my best on the CSA. So I did dial into the Conservation Commission meeting, I think it was last week, and I made a public comment, but I thought that it was wrong, and I feel like I need to come back and just kind of correct it. So I tried to make reference to what Mr. Hamilton was talking about in speaking with, I guess it's the trustees, and some of the comments about whether or not they have to meet a certain limit or some number, percentage of goods that are produced on the farm in order to be a commercial farm. And I'm sure what came out of my mouth didn't really sound right. So I just wanted to now kind of set the record straight. I now have the law in front of me. So it's a big law. It's a Massachusetts Right to Farm law, and it's Chapter 40A, Section 3, and it applies to commercial agriculture, aquaculture, floriculture, and others. And so I know that there's I guess I would say, a desire to work with the trustees to maybe help them through this period that they're going through. They're not, with the CSA and everything being closed. I do have an issue with one thing, and that is there is a law, and it's a difficult law, and maybe Andrew and others can help, but from what I can read of the law, and I was incorrect last week or two when I spoke, but for commercial agriculture, the crops raised on the land need to be 25% of products for sale, and based on gross sales dollars or volume. And it goes on to say if it's at least 25%, and if it's not 25, at least 50% has to be grown in Massachusetts. And there's all this other stuff, and it's a very giant paragraph, and I think there's maybe like 1 or 2 periods. So I would just say that I think it's totally within your right to say you're not going to check up on them. And I think I heard Mr. Hamilton say, yeah, town council has said, we don't have to like mandate that. But the issue that I have with that is a law, so I don't think we can tell them that they don't have to meet the law. They're required to meet the law. But I think that this is also in the conservation restriction. I'm not an expert on that, and I was told that conservation restriction, I think Freddie might have mentioned the CR has at least 51%. That's a little bit different than this law. This law looks like it needs to be 25% from my reading, or can be supplemented or something with other products grown in Massachusetts to 50%. So I guess my only point is I said the wrong information at the Concom, so I wanted to clarify. I wanted to point to the right section of the law, that it's the right to farm law. And I feel very uneasy if we say that to one farm in town that they don't need to follow the law. I have real doubt that that's what town council meant. And no disrespect, Mr. Hamilton, but I think you had said two things that I heard. One is like, certainly not your job to check on them. I totally agree. But it is their job to follow the law. So I don't think we should be saying to one farm they don't have to follow the law, especially since floriculture is on here. And the town has in the past checked on our other farm in town that produces flowers and made them produce receipts to make sure that they were in compliance with this law. So I just want to ask that we, everybody get familiar with this law. The other piece that I wanted to mention is there's nothing in here about any change in use on the property. I think maybe the trustees might have mentioned, or Mr. Hamilton might have mentioned in a conversation, a thought about having as a wedding venue or so. Obviously, that's not in, they would not be considered a commercial agriculture at that point, and it would be a change in use. That's not covered by this law. So I just wanted to clarify the best that I could and point to that section of the law. Thanks.
Thank you, Debbie. So anybody else?
No.
All right,
Oh,
now, chair's report.
I think,
Wait.
yeah.
I
And
thought you were going to wait. You're going
I
to
just
do
want
it
to say something real quick.
now? Okay, sorry.
I just want to talk about vote by mail ballots. We received the ballots on Friday afternoon and had a tremendous number of people help us prepare 2,525 ballots. All the ballots that have people have requested that don't live in Southborough have all been delivered to the post office for delivery. The remainder of the ballots go to the post office tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock, and they will be delivered this week. I have a plea to people who have a question as to whether they have completed a vote by mail ballot. Please call us. Don't submit another one. Don't go online and do it. We've had people submit 3 applications, and the archaic state system requires us to process all 3 individually. So give us a call. Anybody has a question, we'll be happy to tell them where it is. But everybody living in Southborough should receive their ballot in the next few days.
Okay, thank you.
Just a question, Jim. Can you just say the phone number to call?
508-485-0710, extension 3005. Thank you.
Andrew?
Yes, so before we get into the agenda, I just want to briefly acknowledge the passing on September 1st of Ray Minucci, who he's passed away at age 91. He was born in Fayetteville in 1932, and he was a Peters High School graduate who served in Korea, and I got to know him just a little bit from his participation in the Southborough Veterans Day ceremony each year. He read the Flanders Field poem to the assembly, and it was always a very moving moment. So I thought it would be appropriate to acknowledge his passing and pass along the board's condolences to his family.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, so reports. My report is simply that we had the volunteer breakfast yesterday at the senior center. I don't know, how many were there, 20 to 30 or so, maybe?
Yeah, I would say, 30-ish.
Wasn't a great day, weather-wise, but pretty reasonable turnout. Food was good. Hopefully, people there feel appreciated because they are. I mean, we should certainly continue to do that, I think, each year, and maybe try to encourage more people to come. But anyway, it was a nice morning, nicely put on by those that did it, especially Vanessa Hale. Hopefully, the leftover food was not wasted and went to good use with the Dole Men's Club and whoever, and possibly the fire department and police department. Anyway, it's very good. Okay, let's see, who's next? So Al, Chestnut Hill.
Yeah, I attended a Conservation Commission meeting where the trustees talked about their management plan for, I believe it's the next 5 years. And I came away with the strong impression that the trustees don't have a plan to reinstate agriculture on the Chestnut Hill farm. They were non-committal at best, and, I guess the thing I came away with is I didn't just fall off the turnip truck. I know the slow no when I get it. And so I regret that, but at this point, I don't think we can count on a CSA returning to Chestnut Hill Farm. And I would think that this body ought to take note of that as we deal with the trustees.
Okay, so that's disappointing. Andrew, 21 Highland.
Yes, so I want to let everyone know that the first meeting of the 21 Highland Future Use Committee happened on last Wednesday. So I know you're chuckling because
I
we
am.
formed this committee many, many months ago, and it's been difficult to appoint the committee. There's a quorum that met of 4 of the 7, and I thought it was a productive first meeting. I think maybe one of the first takeaways was that the group of the 4 thought it'd be appropriate to first reach out to John Parent to get some kind of baseline information about the condition of the building and how that informs what type of recommendations the committee could make. There wasn't a decision made at that meeting about electing a chair or vice chair. I think that the group felt that they wanted to get more people present at the meeting before they made that type of decision. So another thing that was discussed was the fact that since we formed this so long ago, there's a December 31st expiration of the charge for this committee. And what I suggested is that the group, start some work, and then if we get into late November, early December, and there's been some progress made and some, suggestions, or there's a path forward, that we might consider, a reasonable extension of that. Having in mind, my own view, I think it would be a good target would be to get a report from the committee, hopefully before the annual town meeting coming up but we're going to pick the date for that, but it looks like it's going to be in April.
So I know you're going to tell me I'm a stuck record here, but I still think that, one of the key pieces of information this committee needs to really come forward with a recommendation, if that's where this ends up, is to know what the fate of Finn is. We won't know what the fate of Finn is until possibly May 5th or May 10th, when we have a special town meeting. Because if, that vote is positive, and then the following vote at the ballot is positive, then Finn is getting closed as a school. And so it's, at that point, it's a town property, and, pretty nice town property that we'd use for.
Well, we talked about that. I don't want to get too much into discussion on
But
this.
so I'm just
issue.
saying, that's coming, right? And I just think it's hard to do a whole lot till you know what that's going to be.
Andrew, do we need to change the charge for that group? I thought we had a report due by the end of the year. Did we change that?
That's what he said. So he said,
Okay,
put their feet to the fire and work a little bit, then come back to us in December and ask to have it extended,
okay,
right?
right, sorry,
Don't extend it yet.
okay,
Everybody agree with that?
okay.
Okay, Mr. Purple.
Just a couple of items. First one is something that, we've gotten a lot of emails and everything about, but the CSX has finally set a date to address that railroad crossing on Central Street that's been giving people so many issues driving over that. It's going to be closed October 15th. It's going to reopen on October 16th. There is a detour that is planned. We do have this up on the website, under Newsflash, and we are going to be putting this up, running daily up on Twitter so people can see it and, make sure that it stays in people's memories, but we're glad that this is finally taking place. Second reminder, we're just a few days away from Columbus Day weekend. The ALS won fundraiser at the golf club. Golf club management company has been gracious enough to do this. I think this is the third year to do this. Last year, they raised $4,100. They donate a portion of every greens fee for every round of golf from the weekend. We had great weather last year. Hopefully, we can continue that this year. And this is done in, the donations are made in memory of John Wilson and Brian Schifrin. And just a mention that Brian Shea continues to help to coordinate that. So we appreciate his efforts in doing that. One final item, which kind of dovetails in with what happened at town meeting last week, is that Mass DEP did issue an extension. We've agreed to an extension of our administrative consent order for Breakneck Hill. It is now extended out until March of next year. According to Melissa Danza, they have already begun the work, continuing the work. Let's see, it rained yesterday. So yesterday, they got everything going again. So we should be continuing to move. If the weather cooperates, we'll be done well ahead of March, but DEP did give us the extension to be able to do that. So we appreciate their continuing to work with us as we work through some of the challenges of that project.
All right. Okay, the consent agenda is A, B, C, D, and E. Number C, we're going to move to October 22nd, but I'm going to say something about that after we vote on the other four. So we've really got A, B, D, and E to consider tonight. Anybody want to hold A, minutes?
I'll hold the 17th.
Okay,
Yes, and I'll hold the 17th, 4th, and 30th.
you want to hold them all?
Yep.
Okay, let's see. Anybody else for B, D, or E? No? Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda items B, D, and E.
Second?
All in favor? Okay, so Andrew, I don't know if that is tricentennial full again now with Jim Harding being appointed? Or do you have one vacancy?
No.
Oh, you know what, you are going to have a vacancy, but it's going to be historic, so.
You're right,
Blaschke
from
is
Jim
retired.
Blaschke.
Okay, so that's the one.
Yeah.
So historic will have to appoint somebody new. Okay, Sam, minutes?
Yeah, I've got tiny things. On all three, on line 4 and 5, there needs to be a comma after my name and before Marguerite. Line 9-4, line 72, I'd say approximately $223,000, because there's a more precise number later
Okay,
in the thing. 917, line 154, I'd say other instead of others. And 930 on line 17, I'd say comment on versus present.
what was that one?
Line 17, comment on versus present.
You're on 17 now,
Line 30th.
but
Right.
September 17th?
Nope, September 30th.
30th now?
30th on line 17.
Okay, the line on the 30th is what?
That's right.
Comment on instead of present on line 17. All Scrivener's
We're
kind
not
of
the,
things.
we didn't sponsor that article, so it's not correct to say we're presenting.
Yeah, okay.
Picky, picky.
We are a picky bunch.
That's
Okay,
right.
seriously.
Can't help it.
I know, I'm sure Bridget is rolling her eyes. Okay, so, anybody else? Andrew?
Yes, on the minutes for the 17th, lines 121, 122, I would just end the sentence after address the future of the building, because there was no committee work to provide an overview of the present.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Go ahead, Marguerite.
This gets so competitive. On the September 4th, an executive session, which would be line 14, Ms. Cook space moved.
Okay, yeah, we did run this together. Okay, so space in between cook and moved.
Yes,
I'll see your comment and raise you a semicolon.
Okay, so I will make a motion to approve the amended minutes from the 4th, the 17th, and the 30th.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, now, let me talk for just a minute about, I don't want to belabor this, the restitution for removal of public shade tree at 37 Clifford Street. So everyone saw the memo from Bill Cundiff where where Chris Leroy has sat down with the family that owns a property where the tree came down. Came to an agreement that the penalty for the tree coming down, which you shouldn't have, it was a public shade tree, would be 2 replacement trees. The state law says you can't fine more than $500. It's very clear it says that. These 2 trees are, I believe, $276 each, so more than $500, so we get a little bit more out of it. Came to an agreement to do that. Sat down with Jay Tellerman, went through with him. Jay agreed that was an appropriate way to do it, that $500 does apply. We've got a tree policy that contradicts that. So we're going to talk about it on the 22nd. Planning Board is going to be here. They are very unhappy with this, to say the least. I think unwarrantedly, but I will say no more than that. So anyway, we'll talk about it on the 22nd, and I said, I talked to Ms. Luttrell today, I said, but we are going to get it done on the 22nd. This is no reason to, this is not something we should spend more than one meeting on. Let's just get it done. But that's a scoop. Now, the one thing that might be changed between the 2 trees that Chris Leroy has recommended using are 2 trees that are already dead in the town. And he just was going to replace those 2 trees with the same tree. And that tree that he has recommended is not on the list of trees that we've got. And that's what, Margaret, that's what you've got in front of you, that thing that Katrina sent. So we could change that and make trees that, or we could support what Mr. Leroy recommended. It's our decision to assess the fines, period, regardless of whether it's on a scenic road or not. So we're going to move that to the 22nd, add a deference to Planning Board so they can be here, so they can discuss this with us. Because it is a scenic road tree, okay? All right, so there's a scoop on that one. Okay, next is to basically do a retrospect on the special town meeting from last Monday and Tuesday. So you've got the articles were in your packet as far as what they were, what the votes were, et cetera, to kind of use as a guide here. So I thought maybe we break it into two parts, talk about anything you want to talk about first, and then maybe talk about lessons learned from the meeting, because I think there's probably a couple that are relevant, at least, in my opinion. So Al, I'm going to start with you as far as anything you want to say about special. If you want to talk about any specific articles, go right ahead.
Not particularly, other than, I think we really need the clickers. That would have saved a great deal of angst. The only other thing I'd say is I thought the noisy room was a tremendous success, and that we ought to plan on either having a noisy room or reserving a section of the main hall for families with children, subject to some rules, but, we got people who couldn't have come otherwise on Monday night, and that's what we ought to be striving for.
We're going to talk about that specific aspect of town meeting when we get to where we're going to set the next two town meetings, the special for NERI and the annual, because the special is going to probably draw even more people than this one did. So we're going to talk about that specifically as far as what to do with childcare when we get to there, and know that, yeah, we got a whole lot of compliments on having that room set up, and there were quite a few people in it as far as who went. So I think we did a good thing.
We would run up a creek without a paddle if we hadn't had that room, because we had overflowed the main hall.
Yeah. Well, the two ladies that came and spoke to us about wanting to do that, Mary and what's Mary's last name?
Tinty.
Yeah, Mary Tinty and Andrea Hamilton both told me that they were very happy with what we did. So, okay. Anything else you want to talk about as far as any article that?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Marguerite.
I just echo what Al said, that the overflow / family room was a big success, and I hope we can do it every time.
That's it. Sam.
Agree that the family room was very helpful, and we should continue that. Good that we got several things done, particularly the MBTA thing. That was a great thing to get it finished and move on. So not an easy thing to do, but it certainly drew the crowd, which is, I guess, consistent with our experience in the past. If there's a big issue, people come out. Disappointing that a lot of people left after that, but
Yep.
that's what it is, so
Anything else?
that's it. No.
Andrew?
I don't have much to add other than that the clickers must work at the next meeting. It just has to happen, because I understand it's complicated, but so much time was put into this, and it was disappointing it didn't work. And for a lot of people who are there for the first time, we just got to make sure they work. So I know Jim is going to tell us about how we're going to make them work, but it just has to get done. Absolutely.
So I'll get to that one in a second. I listed a lot of stuff here. I think we've got to avoid going forward a multi-night special town meeting. It's one thing to have a multi-night for the annual when you've got a lot of stuff on it, but we saw what happened with the second night. Now, granted, that's because the big issue was already dealt with, but that was another pitiful turnout on Tuesday, right? I mean, we barely had the 100, and then by the end of the night, there wasn't 100 there. So I think we really should strive to have an agenda that we know is going to be dealt with in one night. We may not be able to do it, but at least think we can do it. At least set it up in a way that it looks like it should happen in one night, so people don't think they've got to come out 2 nights.
Remember for
in a
the
row.
special town meeting.
Yeah, I'm talking special now, not annual. I'm talking special. When you're doing special, if you're focused on one big thing, don't, muck it up with a lot of stuff. We can't control citizens' petitions. Although just for the record, I did ask Ben Smith to please consider indefinitely postponing Article 10, because I thought that would help us try to get through. I was trying to see if we could get through that first night, right? But they wouldn't do it. So I think we really need to try to encourage citizens' petitions, to try to resolve their issues in another way, and do this in a way that hopefully we can get people to come for one night. But when they come for 2, that's a pretty heavy lift, right? So the clickers, not to steal Jim's thunder here, Mr. Haggerty, he's going to make sure this gets done right. So we absolutely do have to have clickers for the special town meeting. We think there's going to be more than 1,000 people there. There were for the Algonquin vote. And, you've got a 2/3 vote, so that's going to be hard to look at, especially if you've got people spread in 2 rooms, which is what we think is going to happen. We think it's going to be held at Algonquin, which we'll talk about in a second. But I know for a fact, because I've talked to Jim, that he has already gone to great lengths to make sure that the clickers are going to work and be expected to be used at that special town meeting. As far as articles go, I'm surprised you guys aren't saying this. I thought that we had a good night. Look what we got. EDC coordinator, full-time, for the first time in all these years, right? Think of all those negative votes and get rid of the budget, and finally we got that done. I think there was a lot of people happy with that. We got the second lieutenant. We know that we made Chief Newell happy with that, and I don't think one person voted against that, although I did say that to Sean McCarthy. Said, yeah, there was one person in the very back that voted against it, but seriously, to have the whole hall vote for something, that's pretty unusual. So I thought that was great. I thought Al did a great job on the rec, and that was an overwhelming vote too. It wasn't close, right? I'm glad we got Article 11 through, although it was a little bit cumbersome to get done. I don't think what Ms. Faniff did was appropriate. I wish she had brought that to us earlier so we could have had time to digest what she wanted to do. I thought it was actually inconsiderate of the hall to start off with. We talked about that article for about an hour and a half before we cut off debate, so I just didn't think that was appropriate either, so I wish that hadn't happened. But nonetheless, it got done, and once the AG approves that, we're off to the races as far as hopefully being a little bit more effective as far as affordable housing. I thought we took the high road on Article 10, so I was proud of that we did that and got that. Didn't spend a whole lot of time talking about that one. So all in all, I thought it was a really good night for the things that we wanted to see get passed. And then, of course, the MBTA. We wholeheartedly, full-throatedly supported the planning board on that, so I thought that was good. And look how close that vote was, too. So every vote counted on that for sure. Anyway. All right, anybody else want to say anything as far as lessons learned or an article? Okay, all right, so we're going to talk about the next 2 town meetings shortly as far as dates go. Sam was anxious to get them set, so we should leave here with both of them set shortly. Mr. Haggerty.
Clickers,
Click, click.
clickers. I never thought I'd have nightmares about clickers, all right? Several things happened. They're all my responsibility, and it won't happen again. As far as the second room goes, I plan to continue to outfit that for voters and children, but it's the moderator's decision whether to enact that or enable the room, but I will have that logistically set up for that. It makes a difference what time of day the meeting's held in there in terms of monitors and the light that comes in from the parking lot. It's just a thought down the road. We need to think about that. We didn't have enough clickers to make all this work. We bought 600 clickers, and the largest meeting we've had in recent memory was in 2001 at EMC. We had over 1,000 people. Since then, we've had one meeting with 600, one with 500. The Burnett House and then the golf course. And then we had these 600 and some odd people come in here. The math doesn't exactly work exactly that way, because the way the system works to ensure the integrity of the voting, so that if you're using a clicker in the cafeteria, it doesn't talk to the receivers in the other room and vice versa. So we had to designate 100 for the cafeteria, which only left us 500 for the other room, and that meant we had 58 voters and 15 children in the cafeteria. So that meant we had a remaining 500 clickers for 553 voters. So we have to do something on the math. I'll look into that for the spring, and I'm probably going to try to buy some clickers just to make that work, so long-term for that. We can rent them at $10 an event, or we can buy them for, I think, $35. Anyway, we'll address that down the road. The second night is what in the technical world I've told some of you they refer to as an ID10T problem. And if you spell it, write that down for a second, will you, Ms. Purple? Write an ID10T.
ID
It spells idiot.
10T?
ID10T, yeah, it's what tech people called an idiot problem. That would be me. I spent 6.5 hours testing 300 clickers. I did everything under the sun. They worked perfectly, and I tested them 25 at a time. Beautiful. Everything was great. What I forgot to do at the end is reset the ones we're testing to be all of them. So when we did the voting, it was only looking for clickers 1,276 to 1,300. But we issued the clickers starting at 1,000. It was as simple as that. So, the moderator said, okay, we're not going to use the clickers, and he started his speech. I went back to my seat. I realized immediately what I did. I tested it twice, went back up to him, said, hey, the clickers are good. But unfortunately, we had started returning the clickers, so we're no good. By the way, we loaned the clickers to Northborough last night. They used them. They had a big meeting with 600 smart people, and they worked just fine. So the vendor, who typically charges $4,500 a meeting to come up and run all this and do the wireless surveys and all the other good stuff, most towns actually pay them that kind of money. We don't need to pay anybody that kind of money. They're going to come up for free at our next meeting. So that's all good. In addition, Matt Probst has offered to help, so Matt's going to walk through this from the MTC. It's always nice to have a guy with a PhD in computer science in your hip pocket. So they will work fine. We will test them 8,000 different ways, and I understand it's significant that as Mr. Dennings has said, this has to work perfectly, and we move on from there. There are some operational decisions the moderator is going to have to make. Mr. Hamlin talked about perhaps letting children in the main room. That's entirely up to the moderator. What do we do if somebody has an orange lanyard clicker? They go into the cafeteria. Do we allow them to switch clickers to go in the other room? We work out the logistics and all that other good stuff. Just to not to jump ahead, but the comment about the special town meeting at Algonquin, I've already made inquiries about renting those or borrowing those. We need to nail down fairly quickly exactly which rooms we'll use, the flow of them. In other words, with the main, if you were to choose to go, we'll work that out down the road. But we can deliver a good product that people have confidence in, and we'll make it work. So I apologize. I just, dumbest thing in the world, and it's all on me. So it won't happen again.
Are you going to stay for the next part too?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Okay, so everybody has in front of them a calendar that's got highlighted dates on it in yellow. So what we need to attempt to do tonight is set the dates of the next two town meetings, the special town meeting to consider the NERI project, and then the normal annual town meeting. So let's start with the special town meeting, because that's got to occur in a very narrow window. It's got to occur between May 1st and May 12th. April 30th is a date that the MSBA votes on our project and the grant that they will give us as part of this project. So that vote has to take place first. If they were not to vote for this, then the whole town meeting vote would be for naught. So that goes first in the normal course of business with MSBA. So that's the 30th. So anytime from the 1st to the 12th. And the reason the 12th is the cutoff is, in addition to town meeting vote, 2/3 vote you have to have because of the debt, you've also got to get the voters to approve at the ballot, at the town election, the debt exclusion from the tax levy, from the levy cap. And that election is May 13th. So, May 1st through May 12th. Some info that may help you decide which date of that range you like. There's 2 Saturdays in this and 1 Monday, is the following. School vacation week is late this year. It's as late as it can be. It's always the 3rd Monday. In this case, the first Monday is the latest it can be. So it's 21st through the 25th. People come back on the 26th and 27th, the weekend. And then kids' sports start. So you've got lacrosse, you've got soccer, you've got baseball, softball starting on the week of the 28th, with that Saturday, the 3rd, being the first real sports Saturday of that season. On Friday, Jim Haggerty, Paul Semino, myself, Jason Malinowski, and Mark were on a Zoom to talk about this. Jason representing the NERI Ability Committee, me representing the Select Board, Mark being Mark, Jim being Jim, and Paul being Paul. Everybody's got an interest in how we set this. I don't know, Jim, what you think. Clear, at least where we ended up, is that the date that group seemed to prefer, although it wasn't overwhelming, was the 10th, of the second Saturday. And the reason that was chosen is as follows. Jason Malinowski, who's got kids playing sports, thought that the 3rd would be, the 10th would be better than the 3rd if you're going to pick a Saturday, because the 3rd is that first Saturday of sports. So he thought of the 2, the 10th is better. Now, look at what's highlighted there. Very important day to the women here. It's Mother's Day on the 11th. So we're talking about the 10th, the day before Mother's Day. The group thought that Saturday was better than Monday because they thought that the parents, school-age parents that will want to vote on this would be more willing to come on a Saturday than a Monday. I'm not sure that's right, but that's what the group said. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. Do you know, Saturday or Monday? We saw what happened this Monday. There was a lot of parents at this meeting. Parents are going to think this is an important vote, so my guess is they're going to find a way to get there even if it's on a Monday. We'll talk about childcare in a second. So it looks like the 3 dates that could happen would be the 2 Saturdays, 3rd and 10th, and Monday the 5th, Cinco de Mayo. Okay? If we pick a Saturday, the group thought it should start fairly early, 9 o'clock, so that if it's over with by 1 o'clock, the afternoon is still open for sports. It hasn't taken the whole sports day away from that. The group thought we need to definitely deal with childcare, maybe not just do the room, but truly have childcare, so that parents really have a place to drop off their kids if they need it. The group thinks that this meeting will not fit at Trottier. We've only got, 300 parking spaces at Trottier and 100-something at NERI. Yeah, maybe 2 people come in a car, but it still seemed like it wasn't going to work. Jason Malinowski said that when he got to the special town meeting on Monday at 20 minutes till 7, he still was parked way down in NERI, so it had filled up that fast. So we think that Algonquin is the better venue for this. They seat, almost 1,000 in the auditorium. And then we would have the cafeteria for overflow if we wanted to make sure we had 2 places, and then we'd have to find a different place for the kids if we choose to do that. The group, Paul said the child care is select board's call. I don't know why that's select board's call. To me, that's a Paul Semino call and maybe a Jim Harity call, but anyway, we'll talk about it and see what you think. But anyway, so the goal tonight is to set that first and then talk about when to do an annual town meeting that doesn't squash them so much that we make people mad because they had to come to so much in a short period of time. Keeping in mind the dates that we've got highlighted. Now, the Passover is wrong, and I checked with my Jewish expert before the meeting started. Yes, technically Passover is all those days, but Passover is really the first 2 days, the 2 Seders. The rest of it, yes, there's things that you have to observe if you're Jewish. You don't eat bread, she said, but it's not observed. So I think you can just assume the 12th, 13th, and maybe 14th are the ones that we need to avoid, but the rest of the week we could use if we chose to. But again, that's the week before school vacation week, where people are getting busy for that. So I'm assuming that our new bylaw will be passed soon, so that we really do have a choice of April for the annual town meeting, so that's an assumption in all this. So with that, I'll start with Andrew. Let's talk about special town meeting first, and then we can talk about annual town meeting once we think we have got the first one set.
Sure. So I was thinking for the special town meeting of Monday, the 5th, because now that's not on a Saturday, it would be on a weeknight. But I think of, if there's an important issue and there's enough advance notice of the date, I think you saw last week, people come out. And I think the same was true of the public safety building, the meeting for that. I believe that was a special town meeting. Right? That was also on a weeknight. I remember I was fairly new to town then and being in an overflow room for that. So, nothing is perfect, but that's what I was thinking was Monday, May 5th for the special town meeting. And then it looks like the annual town meeting, you really are going to have it the first week of April. And I was thinking of Saturday, April 5th. Now, that's keeping it on a Saturday. I think it all depends on what, ends up in the warrant, but we know there's going to be, some important budget issues. Right now, obviously, articles will come forward, but I can't think of anything that's incredibly groundbreaking for the annual other than budget-related articles. So I think that the Saturday would work. But certainly open to hearing what other people have to say.
Okay, so Andrew is advocating for the 2 5ths. The first one is Saturday, the second one Monday. And Andrew, are you opposed to the 10th in large part because it's Mother's Day weekend? Is that your big issue there?
Well, you could do it. I just think that some people might, for that weekend, want to go away for the weekend. I don't think I will be, but some people might. So that was my concern there.
All right, so we've got the 2 5ths on the table. Sam, what do you think about those two? And do you have something you prefer?
I have a question. What's going on April 5th in terms of school sports and other kind of things that we know about?
We think we're still in that in-between period.
Okay.
So Jason says, and I don't know, is he in the audience, by the way? He said, and I'm relying on him because his kids are playing sports, he says the first spring sports date is really the week of the 28th, when
28th
people
of
come
April.
back from
Okay.
school vacation. So that's what
Okay.
he said to us on Friday. Jim, did you agree with, that's what he said?
Yeah, and the third was opening day of baseball.
Yeah. Which, yeah.
Okay. I guess I sort of lean toward what Andrew suggested there. I think it's very helpful to have one on a Saturday and one on a weeknight to sort of balance that out. Excuse me. And I think that with enough advance notice, and I hope it's our decision to do the child care stuff, and we might even think about, child care plus a noisy room, potentially, to give people a wide range of choices there to make it easier for attendance. And I think that it's my understanding this will be the only issue on that warrant. Is that correct, Kathy?
Well, it's not my decision, but that's what I'd recommend so that we
Okay.
really don't, so they come out, they know they're going to come for a
Yep.
specific reason and not have to deal with anything else.
The only wrinkle is citizen petitions. that
We
might-
can't control those, but Sam, if, the annual town meeting is going to occur 4 weeks in front of
Right,
it, right?
yep.
So you would think that if there were citizen petitions, they'd get on that. and that hopefully nothing would happen in between the two that would cause someone to come forward
Yep.
with a citizen's petition,
Yep.
right?
You would think so, but.
And we can also just say, we're really discouraging people from doing citizen's petitions on that one. Please do them on the annual, if you're
Yep,
going to do them,
yep,
you know?
okay. So again, it seems to me that, that annual on Saturday, April 5th makes some sense. And if for whatever reason we don't get our approval from the Attorney General on that one, which I can't believe we won't, you could back it up a week for the last Saturday in March, potentially. We're still good with that one, so that would be a backup there. And again, I think that, you know, we got a lot of people out on a weeknight this time, and this one will be bigger, I think. So, and in theory, I mean, again, it's up to the moderator to control the discussion, certainly, but, and there'll be a lot of people who want to comment, but to me, the basic issues are fairly clear. And that, do you want to spend the money? Do you think this is the right project? And I think the committees have done a good job in terms of laying that stuff out. So,
I agree, that's the two issues we think,
Yeah.
cost and where it is,
Yep.
Location, so.
and I don't think there's, you know, a lot of new facts that people are going to bring in at that point, and we know what the concerns are, and people can raise those issues, and so if the moderator is able to keep that on track and not have somebody make the same point 15 times in a row, I think that could help move it along. So I don't have, you know, horribly strong feelings about it, but I think that combination makes some sense. It balances the time.
Okay, so you like the 5th and the 5th too,
Yes, I
right?
do.
Okay, Marguerite?
I like the 5th and the 5th too.
3.
3. The other part about that is, if the library does get okayed by the state, is that going to be a request for funding that comes in at the regular town meeting?
Marguerite, sorry, I was whispering to Mark. What did you say?
If the library receives the grant and the go-ahead for an expansion, and it was supposed to be the 6th of October, right? I assume we'll hear before the 31st of December. If the state does say to the library, yes, we'd like to give you money to do an expansion, is that something that would be requested in the annual town meeting?
I would think that whatever design money that's needed, you know, it's just like the school project, you're going to have two phases. You got the design, and then you go back and you get that approved, and then you ask for the money to actually build it. So I think at the most, you've already got $150,000 of money for design. I don't know what else the state's going to give you for that. So if you need money for the design, yes, I would think that would be on the annual town meeting.
This is going to be, I think, an ask for the actual
The construction amount?
construction.
Well, you're not going to have it designed by then,
Yeah,
I think it's sort of, okay, that's true.
yeah.
all right?
That's
So you
true.
got to get it
All right.
designed and get
So,
that approved.
so that would be like a year from?
I think so.
All right.
Or another special
Yeah.
at
Oh,
some point.
thank you.
Yeah, so I don't.
Okay, okay, just clarifying that.
Certainly better not to have that annual meeting before the school thing.
That's my thought.
Agree.
That's totally my
Yeah,
thought.
but I don't think it would, I don't think it
Thank
could
you,
possibly
Chief.
happen anyway, Sam.
Anyway.
You got to go through
Yeah,
the
I don't think so either.
design, which is, you know, in the case of Neary, is we've been at this for, you know, almost a year. We've got another year to go, so it takes a
Yep.
while to get that
Yep.
part.
All right,
part of it out of the way.
okay. I just didn't want to be like stepping on the toes of, okay. And the other thing that struck me is almost every town meeting that I go to, there's a half an hour or 45 minutes before the hall fills up. And so if we say we're starting at 6:30, we get going at 7:15. I'm thinking for this whole discussion for the school, it's probably going to be at least 4 hours of back and forth before everybody feels heard. That's going to put us at 11.
Well, we can
Can we
also talk
start-
about starting at 6.
Yes.
Okay, that
Can we
was
start
discussed.
earlier? Because because people are always trickling in.
Hey, Jim, the trickle-in that occurred last Monday, was the line there because we didn't have enough checkers, or people checking in, or just because people showed up so late?
Both. It takes substantially longer to issue the clickers. That's something we'll address and move forward. But there were other people out there. So what we will do moving forward is that if the meeting starts at 6 o'clock, we will identify who the last person in line is at 6 o'clock, and the moderator, what he's done traditionally is to start the meeting when that person checks in. Can I just jump back and talk about the daycare thing for a second?
Yes.
Or the childcare? What I meant to say is that you have the right to designate the rooms, and I'll obviously have that other room set up, but because the moderator defines the bounds of the hall, the moderator is the one that says, I'm going to count the voters in this room and not that room, kind of a deal. You can do anything you want. I didn't mean to say that the moderator has to approve that. That's not what I meant at all. But I just have a question about something. If you're looking at starting this on Monday, May 5th, and again, we have a capacity in the seating capacity in the Trotter School is 505, and say another 800 or so, give or take, in the auditorium.
In the
But
gym.
you only have, you're only talking about, you could put 1,300 people in there, but you only have 300 and some odd parking spaces. It's not going to fly. So you have to go to Algonquin, and they can have 9 and change in the auditorium and probably another 1,500 plus in the gymnasium. So plenty of space there. But now you're talking about people with young kids going all the way over to Northborough on a weeknight. That's going to impact your attendance. What I had from my observation over the years, there's 2 groups of people that are in limited attendance at town meetings. Those are the people under age 35, and those are the people above age 65. It's a misnomer to say that people above 60 got to go to town meeting. They don't. They don't have to drive at night, and they get out of there as quickly as they can. So if you decide to do this on a Monday evening for the special town meeting, I think you should consider that would be an impediment. Now you're talking a 15, 20-minute drive from somebody from the precinct 3 to go over to Algonquin with your children and everything else. It's going to have an impact on some people, but that's your call. Just throw that out to you.
We heard that when we did the May 22 town meeting at Algonquin. We heard that there was criticism that people had to drive there, so that we did hear it.
But I think driving there on a weeknight versus a weekend is a different animal with the kids. What do they talk about with the young kids? My grandchildren, she's out of control, cuckoo clock before she wants to go to bed, the bewitching hour or something like that. It's been a lot. My kids are a lot grown. I've forgotten how that works out, but there's something to be said for that.
What's the downside for May 3rd again, for the special?
It's the baseball opening season, their day.
Okay.
He will make it available? Okay. All right, we've also had confirmed that Algonquin is available on the 10th, and now we've had it confirmed it's also available on the 5th, because the superintendent said he'll make it available. So we've got a choice as far as Algonquin on either night. Okay, so Marguerite, any other comment before Al weighs in here?
No, but I'm seeing, apropos of what Jim said, that you might get a different population of voters if you were at Algonquin and it was a weeknight because of driving in the dark, even though daylight savings time will be in effect at that point, right? So they'll go over when it's light, but they'll drive home when it's dark. Okay. Boy, that's a tough,
So does that argue for the 10th?
yeah, that makes a
During the
case
day.
for the 10th.
Al,
Oof.
I'm going to make a little trouble.
go ahead.
We're scheduling a special town meeting, and with all due respect to the chair, who has tried to keep us abreast, this board has never even received a formal presentation on the Neary School. And I don't think that's a good way to run a railroad, regardless of whether you think about the merits. I'm actually quite concerned about the lack of information. I've been on the website. It's nearly useless. And I mean, I'm going to go along with whatever we decide, but I'm going to just note that we've never really discussed it. We've never had a presentation on the Neary proposal, let alone, a discussion of its merits, the options, the issues, and yet we're scheduling a vote. I understand we got to do it, but I think that, my message to the Neary Committee is that you've got to start talking to the world about this plan, because I have not yet met a single person who wasn't associated with it who's very enthusiastic about this project. And if we're not going to go out and have an active communications plan to actually convince people why this is necessary and what its merits are, then we have wasted $1 million, and I hate wasting $1 million. So as far as Algonquin, I don't think we really have a choice. You know, we don't have a facility here. You know, I attended the Algonquin meeting, and there were well over 1,000 people there. You know, we held it at EMC. I assume that facility is not available to us, and it was probably fairly expensive. I think scheduling it for a Monday evening at 6 is going to be very difficult for people who work for a living. I think, you know, we're going to be contending with rush hour traffic, just trying to get through town. You know, for those of us who live on the other side of the causeway, you know, it backs up pretty considerably. So I think the 10th is probably the preferred date from my perspective. You know, I think the practical logistics of holding this on a Monday at 6 p.m. are daunting. And I am actually concerned that, you know, this board has never been briefed on this project, and we're spending, you know, the taxpayers' money setting up a meeting for something we've never even been briefed on. But I've said my piece.
That's fine, and I will reply to that piece, which is, all those members' reports I did, I briefed you. I mean, they were briefs, they were reports, but more importantly, we've had multiple public forums. Did you go to those? No. We've had multiple, the committee meets very regularly.
You guys are, I'm sorry, I think you're setting yourself up for failure.
Well, we're coming, the Neighborhood Building Committee will be in front of the Select Board very soon to go over this from A to Z. That is planned. But to this point, I think this committee has striven valiantly to get this information out. The meetings absolutely have not been well attended. No one comes to they're all on Zoom. No one comes to the meetings very much. Sam's there, but there are times.
I attended one.
Okay, there you go. So Andrew came to one. So the website issues are noted and have been noted by the committee, so there is not much argument with that comment there. That's got to be improved. But I still think we should set the meeting. You can always cancel the meeting, but we got to get it set to give people a chance to get this on their calendar, which is the purpose of doing this so far ahead, and to get the annual town meeting set, because we promised that at the Monday special town meeting. Jessica Devine wanted to amend that article to require us to set it a certain date, and we promised we were going to get this thing set early. And you can't set that one without knowing when this one's going to be.
Okay, so I'll just say this.
Anybody else?
I
I mean-
initially threw out Monday the 5th, you know, and a lot of that was just based on my thinking of the meeting we had last week. There was a good turnout on a Monday night. And another, you know, reference point for me was the public safety building project. I understand, you know, Jim's point about how difficult it is to have an enormous crowd here, and also some of the problems of having a 6 o'clock p.m. meeting in Northborough on a Monday. So I'm open to having it on I guess it would be Saturday, May 10th?
Yeah, of the two
Right.
Saturdays.
Yeah.
I'm in the same place.
Okay, so you've changed your mind, Marguerite?
Yep.
I agree with Al as far as the traffic goes. If anybody works in Boston, I mean, I left Boston today at 2 o'clock, and I got here at 3:30. I don't know what your experience is, but if you got to get home, you got to get kids fed, you'd have to leave town at 3 o'clock to be able to get here to this meeting. So it is hard to get home, get kids fed, which I think is why probably people came so late to the Monday meeting, and that was 7 o'clock, and that was local. So I still want to hear what everybody said first. I didn't want to put mine, but, because I had the preview of what others thought on Friday, so I would support the 10th rather than the 5th, because I do think it's hard for seniors to drive at night, and certainly hard to keep kids out to 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. They got school the next day. So even if we offer the daycare or childcare, they still don't want their kids to be out that late. By the time they get home, it's going to be 11 o'clock if we end at 10.
But even with a 10th, I think it's incumbent on us to try to work hard to make sure that it starts on time
Yeah.
and moves along quickly, and we don't wind up with 45 minutes of delay
Yeah.
for whatever reason.
Because there you're going to have people, they're still going to have trouble getting there at 9 o'clock because, it's hard to get.
And if it
people
gets
going.
out by, 1 o'clock or so, that still does leave the afternoon potentially for some of the sports competitions. So,
So you are amenable to the 10th.
Sure.
Marguerite is. Sam, are
Yes,
you going to
yes.
change your mind?
10th works better.
Yes. All right, so Al, having heard what you said, I hear you. Let's at least get this tentatively set, so it's out of the way. We can give people notice, and they can get it on their calendar, and we can then work to try to make sure that this project is fully explained long before May 10th.
So we're the 10th for the special and April 5th.
Yep, at 9 o'clock. So the motion should be, the vote is to hold the special at Algonquin on May 10th starting at 9 a.m.
So move.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay. All right, so that one's set. Now let's talk about the date for annual, assuming that the warrant article gets approved in the near future.
Yep.
All right, so Sam, you want to start with this one?
Start in terms of,
Yeah, so
Same here, yeah.
we said the 5th, but now that's another Saturday. Do you want to now
Yeah.
switch this one to Monday? So we do one on Saturday, one on Monday, which would be the 7th? Or do you want to keep this one on Saturday?
remind me, was there a problem with the 7th?
No?
I guess I don't mind the 7th then,
All right, sounds good.
for weeknight, again, with childcare and noisy room and all that kind of stuff.
We've avoided Passover, Easter, and April vacation by doing the 7th.
Sounds good. And so be one Monday and one Saturday.
Yeah, so it's kind of split into the middle. Al?
I like the idea of, offering at least one Monday. That was at least, based on the survey, the preferred
Yep.
date. I will make one other, I'm sure I'm going to get into big trouble for this, but, we worry about interfering with sports, but in fact, the fields are under our control. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, but I don't think there's any sports being played
No,
that
this
week,
was
so I think-
related to a Saturday meeting.
Special town meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
You need to have
that,
the fields down.
yeah.
So,
I think, I'm okay with Monday, the 7th.
I think that's
Okay.
good, yeah.
Andrew?
That's fine.
Okay. All right, so Sam, can you make a motion for the 7th to be the date of the annual town meeting started at the normal 7 o'clock?
sure. I move that the annual town meeting for 2025 be at April 7th at at Trotter, as usual, starting at 7 PM and continuing to the 8th if necessary.
Necessary, yep. Andrew?
Sounds good.
Okay, all in favor? All right, so,
Good.
so we've at least put clarity around those dates. Jim, did we miss anything that you can think of?
No, but I just want to throw some numbers at you in terms of costs.
Okay,
The cost to hold the second meeting was about $6,000 by the time you figure in the audiovisual, the overtime for the police officer, the custodians, and all the good stuff, about $6,000 for that. The audiovisual company charges us a flat labor rate for the day, so it's cheaper to hold it in one day versus whatever. I'd ask you to consider maybe starting this at 6:30 instead of 7. And again, getting back to the point here, because I almost said,
Yep.
the moderator's speech takes up a good hunk of time, and the early part of the meeting are generally consent agendas, things that are non-controversial. So we eat up a half an hour of time that really isn't, people, and I say they don't care about it, but it's almost administrative. So if you started this at 6:30, you might potentially avoid a second night.
Sounds good.
Just worth a consideration.
I'm okay with that, yeah.
Al?
Yep.
Because we're only talking the annual now. Okay, so somebody want to do an amended motion to change the time to 6:30?
I'll amend my motion to change the time for the annual town meeting on April the 7th to 6:30 PM start.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. All right, so I think we got that done?
That's a good idea.
Okay. All right.
Kathy, got a question for you and/or Mr. Hegarty. So it's my understanding that we can say that we want to have a noisy room or childcare or whatever, but the moderator still has the choice to define the bounds of the hall. So we could say that, but the moderator theoretically could say bounds of the hall are the trolley or auditorium, and that's it. So hopefully there will be constructive dialogue around that to make sure everybody's on the same page, because I think that's an important aspect of attendance. And I don't mind, frankly, if there are not too many people in that noisy room, as long as it makes it easier for people to attend town meeting.
Just a ballpark, the cost, the incremental cost for the second room is roughly $1,700.
I think that is money well spent to, again, open it up to people who might not otherwise attend.
It shouldn't be a factor.
All right, moving on. So Sam very kindly drafted a letter for us to consider tonight to Kat Miller, who we all met on, was it Friday? Yeah, Friday that we toured the 352 Turnpike Road site that's being proposed for the next 40B from Dave Ferris. During that meeting, she announced that comment letters are due by October 24th, which is why we scrambled to get this in the packet tonight. I didn't realize it was that soon. We are meeting on the 22nd, but that seemed to be pulling it a little bit close to get this done. So Sam, in his normal speedy fashion, got this done very quickly and got it into our packet. Has everybody had a chance to read it? You want to read it real quick? I mean, it's one page, Al, so I'll give everybody a couple minutes to read it.
It was not my most detailed effort, but I think it got the point across. So. And frankly, I'm not sure how much in detail Mass Housing reads this stuff, other than what is the general drift of it, approve or not approve.
Yeah, well, she tried to tell us, we only have a certain thing that we need to do here as far as that eligibility letter. We just,
Yes.
Basically, does the applicant have site control over it, right?
Yep.
So getting into the weeds with what you may want is just not appropriate right now, and she's not going to look at
We're
that.
not going to have much impact.
No.
Yeah. It would be worth more detail if we were objecting. We'd have to list the 27 reasons why we're concerned about it.
I think it's a good letter.
Thank you. I plagiarized from the last one we did.
That's why it's a good letter.
I don't have an issue with it.
And
Right.
there are a few things I bracketed in there. I think, as I recall, it is 60 units. I wasn't positive.
It's about 60, I don't know if it's exactly 60,
Yeah.
so,
And also, I'm not sure of the development group. Last time it was, affiliate was FD 120 Turnpike LLC.
so you're guessing that's what it is?
I'm guessing what that is, so we need to check. Ferris Development,
Okay,
yeah.
so who's signing the letter?
Well, I think we can let town administrator make minor administrative changes.
Right, yeah.
So we'll get those confirmed to get that done. The only thing I wanted to add is on the second black bullet, the 1, 2, 3, 4th open bullet, at the end of it, I'm just really intrigued by that additional building. And we said this in front of Dave Ferris on Friday, at least one of us did, I did, I think. The proposed additional building on the site can provide some local services within walking distance for residents. I just want to add, including senior citizens.
Sure,
3 words, including senior citizens,
yep.
okay? Which is exactly what I said on Friday.
And
Other than that, I
so-
thought it was well-written, very well-written, okay?
Thank you to the prior author. So, Mark, can you check to see who the development organization is there? Is it, again, FD 352 Turnpike LLC, or does he have another LLC that's actually filing this thing? Make sure.
And then
we
how
have
many units
the right-
exactly?
Right reference there.
Right.
And then, as long as 60 units is close, again, confirm that that's the number.
All right, those 2 things?
Yep.
Yes, it was amended, so it is on the agenda, I promise. Okay, so I will make a motion to approve the letter to Kat Miller regarding 352 Turnpike Road, 40B, written by Mr. Stivers, and with the 3 sentences, including senior citizens, added after the second bullet, 4th sentence.
And authorize our chair to sign on behalf of the select board.
And authorize our chair, me, to sign it on behalf of the select board.
Okay,
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
good.
All right, check that one off. Okay, ARPA. I believe our main attraction is here. So now Carla is here too, just so you know. She's in her office, and I think she's going to come and join us because she's gotten to the point I make a mistake every time with ARPA, and she's tired of having to zoom in, and so she's here in person tonight.
Can you hear me?
Get close,
again.
close to the mic,
Can you hear
yeah.
me?
Yep.
I'm as
Not really.
close as one can get to the
That's
mic.
good, that's good.
All right, so Kat, why don't you introduce yourself first?
Catherine McKee, Southborough Trails Committee Chair, 18 Walnut Drive.
Okay, and speaking of the devil, she just walked in, so, okay, other side, there she is. Okay, so, it's October 8th, we've got to December 31st of this year to ensure that all ARPA funds are totally committed, not necessarily projects done, but they have to be legally committed, so that the money is going to go to these projects, legally. So, Kat, we just have been, you got a tough one, and we know that, and we totally support your projects, but we don't want to get this money back either,
No, I
okay?
get it.
So,
I came prepared
okay,
for
go.
this conversation, so I understand that. So a quick update of where we are with the Peninsula Phase 2 project, which is the engineering and for the boardwalk and the bridge. We just met with Conservation Commission number 1, Southborough. We would have met with the Framingham Conservation Commission, but they delayed it due to a religious holiday, so that's going to be on the 16th of October. That gets us the NOI, which allows us to do the work that we need. So it went well with Southborough, but there is going to be a bit of a delay with the Mass DEP issuing the number that we need, and that's a known issue with the, I guess it's called the Central Region. But that should not be a delay with the Framingham side. So hopefully we'll have, once on the 16th of October, we'll be meeting with Framingham, and we should be able to move forward and get our NOI in place to be able to proceed with the, finalize the engineering plans for that project. So then what we'll do next, so the engineering services are coming out of the big ARPA bucket, the 144. So what Carla presented as a final number did not include one invoice that we just recently submitted. So the remaining number that you have for the ARPA money that was spent was $63,258. So it actually should be updated to be $50,501 as a remaining from the PO number. So the original PO was $76,000.
Okay, turn around, look, make sure Carla gets all this, because she updated this tonight.
Can you come up to the table, Carla? Thanks.
Okay, I updated. Did you get the most recent invoice from August for $12,575?
No?
Okay. So that's missing then from the numbers.
No, well, but we've encumbered that, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so I was just, because the update that you had provided me didn't have the August invoice in it, so I just,
Okay. Well, we've encumbered it if it's in the PO,
Yep.
so we should be good. But I did, tonight, the update that I gave to the board included the 6,600,
yeah, the 6,000 for the paving.
6,000 plus 600.
What was the 600? I think?
So the contract, and I sent something back to Travis on that, it's an estimated labor cost of 6,000. I'm going to tighten that up in a contract document to not to exceed.
Okay.
And then if you read the next section down, it said reimbursable expenses.
Oh.
You should be budgeting 10% of the labor cost, which is another 600. Again, I'll make that to not to exceed, so we have the 6,600.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Okay, great. Yeah. So what I'm looking at now is, anyway, so once we get the NOI in place, that's the engineering services are coming out of the ARPA money, right? So when we go to bid and we get the project paid for, that's coming out of CPA. So that is not dependent upon this year's numbers. So I
That's
just want to
separate from ARPA.
Yeah, we
Perfect.
separate that piece. The bid,
Say that one more time.
sure. So after we get the engineering services,
Gotta get close to that mic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
after we get the engineering services in place, then we're going to bid, right? And we do expect that to happen this year.
Okay, so the ARPA money is only paying for engineering services,
Correct,
not the actual project?
correct.
So we don't have to worry about that bid being
Correct.
done now?
Can I ask a follow-up question on that?
Of course.
So on the spreadsheet that I'm looking at, is that true also for, we were talking about the 144 for the Peninsula Trail. Is that also true of the Southborough Trail enhancements and the crosswalk, that money is for the engineering?
No.
No. okay.
Yeah, separate buckets, which I'll address shortly, but I
So
wanted
we're only
to
talking
address-
about the 144,547 at the moment.
Right,
Okay.
we should, let's stay on that one until we move to the others, which we can do.
So what I can tell you, just to jump in, is there's, in Kat's number, there's a 21,000 for paving, an estimated quote that I am not
I
recognizing in
haven't
here.
spoken to that yet, so
Okay.
I wanted to.
I'm
take it
jumping
through.
ahead, sorry.
We're all
Wait,
excited.
wait. So there's a quote for paving that's within the 144?
Just, let me step
not
back.
in my number.
Let me step back
She's
so that we
trying to tell us.
Yeah, so we can
She
just-
knows what she wants us to know, so let's
Yeah,
just let her get
and I
through
want
it.
you to feel comfortable with the orientation. So now that we know that we don't have to talk about the building of the bridge yet, we're just focused on the engineering services. So that should be complete this year, no problem. We should have it completed. They're helping us with the bid package, so that should come out by November, right? And then, so that money in the PO has already been encumbered, so even if the bid goes into January, you correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And they're providing some consulting services for that bid, that's okay, because they have already encumbered, we've already encumbered the money with a PO.
Yep.
I'm sorry, Kat, when you say they help us,
Beals.
they will?
Beals.
Beals,
and
okay.
Thomas is the
If
engineer.
that was if that was part of the
It was part of
original
the PO
contract.
and part of the original contract.
Okay.
So we're covered there. Are we
Okay,
comfortable
we
with
need
this?
Carla to agree with this. Okay, that's why she's
Okay.
here tonight. She's the one that's going to be signing off on this as
Yeah.
far as whether we have met the requirements of ARPA to encumber
Yep.
$3,051,000 by 12/31. Okay, so are you with her, Carla, as far as?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, great. So that's the engineering services. So then we have the 6,600, which I had as 6,000.
Can you speak into the microphone, please? Thank you.
There may be something wrong with her microphone. She is speaking into it.
You want to
This-
switch?
No, this happened last
You
time.
think it's her?
I
or-
think I just have to
Well, that's,
be very close.
Close enough.
okay,
Yeah, get really close.
Yep,
okay.
okay. So then what we need for remaining money to help us with the match for our Mass Trails grant, so I'm switching projects, right? We need paving of the ADA parking spots. Now, we need the 6,000 for engineering services, which we have a contract that's getting amended. And then we need a paving quote. So the quote here is 21,000. That was provided by DPW. It may be a little high because I think he estimated more spots than we were anticipating, so that number may
This
be
is the
lower.
crosswalk or the trail enhancements?
This is still part of the 144 bucket.
Okay, I
We
thought you
haven't-
said we moved over. Okay, so we're still part of 144.
Well, I moved over to Phase 1 project because there's going to be a little bit of, we talked about in July's update that we're going to use some ARPA money to help with our Phase 1 project matching requirement.
So
Okay,
some
I'm trying.
DPW expense, because there's also a grant piece that we have to provide a matching
Yep.
on. So will part of that 21 be?
That is
go
what it's
the
for.
grant? Okay,
Yeah,
because
so
the
the-
grant's going to be used by December as well.
Right, so what
Okay,
we're,
so you grant, that was another question. So CPA you can use later.
Yep.
But the grant and ARPA you got to use now. Okay.
exactly. So what we need is the 6,600 for the paving engineering services, and then we need a chunk of money, which I've estimated 21,000 here, to pay for the paving this year. And that will help us meet our match for our grant. Okay?
Okay,
Are we all on the same page?
Can I ask a follow-up question?
yes.
Please.
Okay, so you actually have to do the paving by the end of this year?
Or contract for it, or do it?
So we need to have a contract for it, but
I
how do we
need it-
contract with ourselves?
Actually, I need
Or to
to
get the
have
grant.
it done.
Maintain the grant.
I need it done.
He's asking about the grant now. Do you have to have the paving done to get the grant?
Yeah.
To match.
What's
need-
being paved again?
2 parking spots for ADA, for the,
In that area to the north of Route
And when do you
30?
plan on doing?
Hold on now. Let Andrew finish his.
The 2 ADA parking spots that are being paved, it's,
at Central
Probably
Street
right.
and Route 30, where we put the parking spots in.
okay.
So it's 21,000 for 2 parking spots?
I clarified that when we got the original quote, I think it's a little high because Bill had estimated more spots than we had, and I think he was providing a buffer for us, so it probably won't come to that, but we can get the
So,
quote if you
again, it's to the south of Route 30, and then you walk across it.
To the north of Route
okay.
30, yeah, up
All right.
that little driveway there.
Yeah, that little driveway that's.
Where we
dirt.
did the
I get
history
it.
walk, and I think you joined us on the
Yes,
history
that
walk.
was a long time
Yes.
ago, but I did, yeah, that's right. You can't
So
park there
that-
now.
You
This
can,
one,
there's some,
Feels kind of illegal to do it.
well, it feels illegal, but you can
Yeah.
park there.
Tight, yeah.
Right. And then we added ADA parking spots
Okay, gotcha.
further up, so.
And
we could-
when do you plan to have the paving done?
This year. So,
The paving season is coming to an end. So, you know, if you can't tell us a date or an estimated date,
I can give you in a week an estimated date.
But again, ARPA doesn't tell you the paving's got to be done. The grant says it's got to be done?
Yes.
Okay, so
This
you
has-
literally have to spend the grant this year?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not just committing like it is with ARPA, you got to spend it.
Correct.
The work's got to be
The
done.
project is going to be done.
Okay, by the way, Bill Converse online too, if we've got any questions for him. So, obviously, it's not our DPW doing that, there's an outside contractor doing that.
Yes.
Okay, so, but Al's right, that the paving system, paving season is definitely coming to a close, so.
Yep.
Bill's listening to this. Okay, Carla, we didn't say much while you were gone.
Okay,
on purpose.
I heard it in my office.
All right,
I'm
Okay.
caught up.
okay.
I just wanted to get my sheet as well.
Al, did you have another question?
no, I mean, I'm concerned that, you know, we're at the end of the paving season, and you can't tell me when the paving's going to get done.
Okay.
I keep being the guy that has to deliver hard messages, but
So maybe we can
This is not a
firm that
clear
up with Bill
presentation.
this week, or?
Well, it's not Bill, but I'll confirm with quotes this week, yep, or in the next week. It's not going to be this week.
you're not leaving me with warm and fuzzies.
I mean, worst case is that we don't get paved, we lose the grant money, and we got to deal with it next year.
That could be a worst case,
That's
but I'm
worse.
not looking at that as the worst
Unlikely
case at
maybe,
this
but
moment.
that
Yeah,
could be the worst case.
Yep.
So what's left in the grant to spend is $16,743.
yes, and we're doing that with the signage that we're putting in.
So you've got 34,000 spent of the grant. So you're going to get that, right?
We already got that.
Okay.
Yep, we did
All right,
get
so
that.
you've gotten reimbursed for that, okay, so now it's the 16 that, it's only 16 that's at risk right now, as far as getting the paving done, okay. Okay, so, again, before we lose track, we're trying to make sure that, we're trying to get Kat to convince us that she is going to have all of the ARPA money encumbered by 12/31/24. That's our goal tonight, is to make sure.
Right, but I think I'm going to bring back to you that I think you're going to be able to take some money back for another reason, which we'll get into next.
Okay, when will you bring that back? Because we are
Right now.
truly running out of time
We
to.
want to talk about it.
We've
right
got a whole list of projects that are in
Yeah.
line, so we've got the projects.
Well,
Okay.
Let her finish.
Let's
then. She's
continue
got-
then.
yeah.
Okay,
Are you ready?
yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
So what I'm proposing, so we talked about the crosswalk, right? And this is the information I now have on the crosswalk, after meeting with Mass DOT and with talking to the engineers about what it's going to take to get a crosswalk in place. So right now, the timeline for the application process isn't going to work to submit a full application to DOT. But we do have estimates for engineering services to do a study, to do the initial study. So you basically study, do the traffic plan, the plan concept, prep for the application, do all the details, get it ready. So the question before the board, so we could do that potentially this year, encumber all the funds that we need to do that study and have everything ready to go. And then what we could do, because we won't be able to do the full project this year, is forfeit the remaining funds, and then you take those and reallocate to other projects, right? So the question before you is whether you feel comfortable if, by the next select board meeting, I can provide you with proposals ready to sign for the engineering services, and we have a commitment that that can be done this year for, I think, the approximate amount. Let me just take a quick.
Kat, could you speak to what the,
Hold on, Marguerite, let her
Let's get
finish
the
this
number
one.
here, yeah.
that's what I wanted.
We'll get
Just
to
a
it,
second.
we'll get to the other one.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, so for 22,000. So basically, Beals and Thomas portion would be 5,000. Vanessa is the traffic engineer for 15. So it works about 20,000 with a contingency of 2,000, so 22. And I would have a firm number by this next select board meeting. So that's the question before the board. If you felt comfortable moving forward with doing engineering services for a crosswalk, then we could do that. The only issue is, which makes me a little uncomfortable, is we still don't have an MOU with Sanofi, and that commitment, I think, is important for the town before you commit funds to ensure that we're getting parking for the commitment of the crosswalk. So if we don't have that by, say, the next select board meeting, which would be commitment from
Sanofi.
Sanofi,
Okay.
and the proposals in hand from the contractors for the engineering services, then it's a no-go.
Okay, I thought the 15 was supposed to build the crosswalk. It's not? It's,
It initially was, that was the initial quote we received, but now as you dig into it more, it's like, oh, you need engineering services for the traffic plan, the concept plan, and then you have basically the DOT permitting system and some of the fees and association, things associated with that. So that's why the cost is different.
but you think it's 22 and not 15?
That was my question, too.
Yeah, because I recently spoke with Beals and Thomas. They provided an estimate on what the cost would be on their end. We spoke with the traffic engineer. They provided a rough estimate of what it would cost for their end. That's why it's,
$22,000.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
but
for
you only got
engineering.
15.
Well, because we had talked about using part of the 144 to kind of
Well,
supplement.
that was my next question. So
Yeah.
you think you're going to have something left over there that you could reallocate to
Yes.
the crosswalk?
So there's two scenarios. One scenario, you don't want to do the crosswalk at all, so you reallocate 55,791.50 back to another project. And that's going to be the remaining bucket after.
55,000.
Where are you getting 55?
55 is basically, well, it's going to be off by 600 because I didn't have that initial 600. But it's basically if you use the 6,000 and the 21,000 that I need for paving, you take that off of Carla's initial number, or she had the 6,000, but you take it off the initial number, you have a remainder of 40,791
In the 144?
in the 144. Then you add that to the 15, and you get your 55.
Okay, so it sounds like we've got two choices, right? We're going to get $47,000 back from the 144 regardless, right? With what you just said?
If
Okay,
you don't go with the crosswalk, you
right, so we either take it back or we allocate $6,000 or $7,000 to the crosswalks to get the engineering done, or at least
It's 20.
22,000.
encumbered, right? So I said, so 6 or 7, what, I said $6,000 or $7,000 from that. She's got 15.
Oh, I see what you're saying,
Okay.
you're adding to the 15.
All right.
Okay, yep, she's right.
Right, so she gets 6 or 7 from that, so we still would have between 30 and 40 to use elsewhere of
Yeah.
ARPA money,
Yeah,
right?
roughly 34.
Okay. So really, all you've got left to encumber as far as the 144 is the paving?
The 21,000.
The 66, and, well, we've got the 6.
You got the 66, I thought,
Yeah.
taken care of, right? You've got a contract for
Well, it's
60, or
coming.
6.
Yeah, it's not quite finalized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dangerously close.
So do you two believe we're going to have a contract for 6 in the next, okay, so it's only the 21 that has to be dealt with. But,
And that's estimated, right?
Yes.
yeah.
Yep. But I can have so the thing is, if you wanted to give a week or two for the next select board meeting, if I can't come up with the contract and something that you feel comfortable with, if that were appropriate for you, you could then reallocate it at that time if I've not been able to come forward with the final information that you need to feel comfortable.
Okay, because you need, in addition to the 20, okay, back to the state grant. The state grant's also part of this?
It's not part of this, but we were using some ARPA funds to come up with the match.
Okay, the state grant, the 16,000 that you still haven't received from the state is for which piece of this? The trail or the crosswalk?
None of that. It's for the trail. It's signage and such for the trail.
For the Peninsula Trail?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so the paving, the 2 parking spots, is solely going to be funded by ARPA?
That's the
Right.
proposal. Yep.
Okay, so as long as you get the contract signed to do the paving, since it doesn't affect, the grant's not involved in this at all, right? You should be all set as far as ARPA goes.
As far as ARPA goes,
But not
yes.
the grant.
But you're saying the
But she's
grant.
saying the grant has nothing
But
to
I
do with
need-
this one.
It doesn't have anything to do with the ARPA money, but I do need the grant done by the end of the year.
I understand,
Yeah.
but I'm
But-
staying on the crosswalk now.
Yes,
The grant has nothing to do with the crosswalk,
correct.
okay? So Carla, so therefore, Al's concern is maybe not that big of a concern. It doesn't have to be done this year, the paving. You've just got to contract for the paving.
But if the paving is going to be used as the match for the grant.
Then it needs-
All right, well, that's, okay, see, all right.
That's-
Excellent.
yeah, that's-
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So there's nothing else we can do to match that grant besides the paving?
That's a DPW question.
No, it's a money question. It's where we would come up with the difference. If we can use the engineering services, that's a done deal, and then I would be short by 14,000. And this has to do with the original quote that we used as the matching came in at a number, and then when the actual labor was taken place, it was different than the original quote. So we're working with it just because that's how it worked out.
Are you close to getting this MOU signed?
Pardon?
Are you close to getting the MOU signed with Sanofi?
I'm working on it, but I don't know if I can say I'm close yet. I'll have that information in a few days.
So hold that one, because that's a separate vote that we either are going to say we really want her, we really want to get the money back from the crosswalk, because that one looks to me like it's pretty tenuous. Okay, so staying on the 144 again.
Yes.
The only thing left, Carla, to commit, she's going to have money left over, she just told us that. So the only thing left for her to encumber by the end of the year is, based on her numbers, is the 21,000, right?
Yep.
Okay, so we know she can encumber it, but if she doesn't have it done, she loses the $16,000 remaining in the grant, right? So she would need another $16,000 from ARPA to make up for not getting the rest of the grant,
Not necessarily from ARPA,
or from someplace.
Somewhere.
CPA. I
Okay,
have funding for CPA.
okay, all right.
So
Yeah, there's,
whether it's an approved expenditure, which I'm assuming we'd have to confirm with them, because there's been some question about whether,
But you know you can encumber the 21,000, that's not going to be that hard to do. You just may not get it done, to Al's point, right? Because paving season
get the
is
quotes, yeah.
closing. But you can certainly get the contract signed
Yeah.
to be done as soon as the spring is here, right?
yeah, if they can't do it this year.
Okay, so we need to know the exact amount. That's what you really need to get for us, I think, on that one, if we stick with that. And then, so we know what we need that can come back.
Yep.
Again, push it to the 22nd. Carla is truly going to have a heart attack here, I think. Push it to the 22nd. But we got to know what that number is
Yep.
exactly by the 22nd, so we know what we need, we can pull back to
Yep.
allocate to something else.
Yes.
Okay? You're okay with that?
yep.
Thank you.
All right, so that takes care of the 144. Everybody with me on that one? It took me a while to understand.
And what is left in the 144 at this point?
About 40,000 is going to be
40,000.
left when, after she allocates the,
Okay.
after she encumbers the 21.
21-ish, yeah,
Yep.
around
So just
40.
call it 40-ish, yep,
Yeah.
between 35 and 40.
I'm curious, too, we talk about engineering for this thing. What's it going to cost to build if we get the engineering done? And where's that money coming
To
from?
build the
The
The trail.
bridge.
trail, the bridge,
That's
Yeah.
the CPA funding that we received this year, so that project is
so
all-
that money is all set,
all
basically?
set.
Okay.
Yeah, there's about almost 260,000 of CPA money
Yeah,
available.
the 47 was from the first project, though, so.
Okay.
So we're going to get a trail built.
Good, thank
We
you.
are getting a trail built, a little bit later than expected.
Piece
We're
by
getting it.
piece.
All right, so I think we're okay for the moment with 144, but you'll be back on the 22nd, correct? Okay.
Yep.
Now let's talk about the 15. Do we want to just say, this one's really tenuous at this point? I don't know what else you're going to get done between now and the 22nd on that one. It doesn't sound like,
Well, I think what we could get done, and I'm not, it's a consideration, but what we could get done is a commitment from Sanofi that they are, yes, intent on doing the MOU and moving forward with the commitment for the parking spots. I would hate to let that go, but I certainly understand the situation you're in, so it is what we're
Okay,
at.
so you agree that if you don't have the MOU by the 22nd, we're going to pull that money back?
Or a commitment for the MOU. We may not realistically get a red line document.
You're dealing with a
between-
big, big corporation that
and a
probably
town.
doesn't move very fast. right?
Exactly. So we've got a slug and a slug moving at snail's pace. So, there's
But you still need another $7,000 to do the engineering you just talked about in that bucket, too. Right? So we could give you 7 from the 40 you're going to tell us about on the 22nd to do that one. Okay, so I guess if everybody agrees, we can hold on those 2 to the 22nd.
Yeah.
But it does sound like this 15,000 for the crosswalk is,
Well, it's not going to get built with the 15. She's now just talking, spending 22 on engineering the crosswalk.
Yeah, and the concept plans and getting prepped for the permit and getting everything in ready mode. And then what we would do, we'd have to go for another funding source to be able to pay for it.
and you already
Crosswalk
have
install.
alternate things that are lined up that don't require as much, the things you can just go out and buy.
Paperwork.
Mr. Cundiff's list, yep.
Okay.
And what is
And
the
Chief
crosswalk?
Contini-
What's that?
Chief
Crosswalk
Contini
and
has
cost.
items as well.
Oh, we didn't know about that.
Go ahead,
Okay,
Sam, I'm
so
sorry.
he's not listening to
Crosswalk
us.
cost, if we get the MOU done?
Yes, so estimate on the crosswalk cost essentially is about, so there's a high end and a low end. So a low end is like 12,000, a high end 20,000. It just depends
To build it.
Build
to the actual
Okay.
materials.
Is that
are-
CPC eligible?
I don't know if
Part of the
that
trail.
is. Yeah, I don't know if that's considered CPC. Yeah.
Yeah, the
But
vote
there
was
may
for
be
the trail.
other crosswalk, like traffic-oriented funding that we could go for
Okay.
rather than just specific.
Well, it won't hurt to ask Sanofi when you deal with the MOU, would you mind funding the crosswalk also? All I can say is no, right? But they
Yeah, I
wanna
might
do it.
have put something forward already on that, but I could certainly share that we have more information now and, we're further down the road, so I could
Yeah, but
certainly
it
put
gives
that
our
out
employees a
there.
chance during the day to go for a really nice
Oh,
walk.
there's a win-win here,
Yeah.
for sure.
I'm joking about that, I'd ask them.
Can I
Okay,
ask
now
just
let's
one
go to,
question?
are we ready
Sorry,
for the
Catherine.
third one?
I have one
Go ahead.
question. So on the crosswalk, do you have to have the MOU in place to go get the engineering service quotes?
Well, the reason we need the MOU and why we're pushing forward is because I wouldn't want the town to commit to any money unless we had a commitment from them for the parking. Because otherwise, we're just putting a crosswalk in place for a business to take advantage of, and we have no benefit as a town and the trail users. And that's the whole point. That's how that conversation came about, the crosswalk, is we wanted to use some parking, and they said, sure, we'll do that if you pay for a crosswalk for safe traveling. And I think it's also a liability issue. They don't want people parking on their property and then getting, hurt on the road that they're coming from. So I think it makes sense.
But that makes sense. You don't want to pay for the engineering for a crosswalk that you can't put there because they renege on the
Yeah.
parking places.
Yeah, and I don't want to be responsible for spending town money. We're not getting value
Also,
from it.
there's like another layer of,
There's always.
Okay, so we're going to give Kat to the 22nd, and then that's it. We really are good.
Yep.
Okay.
No, I appreciate the extension, and I
Who
understand.
does? Okay, so bring him over. You took it down? Okay, now we're ready to talk about the trail enhancements?
Yes.
Okay, so that, guys, is the first one, 12,500.
So that's the 7,000 remaining. So, I mean, I don't mean to say it's easy, but that's easy spend. It's just having to spend on the certain things that we were talking about doing, which is signage and some bench and some other things. So, again, I can commit to having it committed by the 22nd so that you know that it's being spent, and if it's not, then you
So
take
these
it
are
back.
trail enhancements, not to the Peninsula Trail. to
Correct.
Other trail.
Around the town. Yeah, so boardwalk materials for small bridge, that type, like wooden planks, not big bridges, but yeah.
Okay. Kat, you got a lot of work to do.
I
You have
know.
2 weeks,
Yeah, thank you.
okay?
Yeah.
Everybody okay with this plan?
Yep, so what does that leave us for sure at this point?
Where does it leave us as far as money?
40?
What we got for money right now?
Yeah, 40. Did we allocate?
Yeah, we got the 40, we've also got 20 that's coming back from the McCullough room upgrades because Sam, the PEG money's going to pay for that instead, so that's 20, and we had 3. So call it 60 to be.
60 plus a little, yeah, okay.
Okay,
Any other questions?
Okay. Good
think
luck.
we're okay, Carla?
I think we're okay.
Okay.
Okay, so
Thank
that's
you
it
for your
for
help.
Kat. We've still got to talk a little bit more about ARPA stuff, but that's it for Kat.
Okay,
Thank you for coming.
thank
Yeah,
you.
no, thank you for your time, for your patience, and for your understanding.
I'm going to
We
move
like
over.
our trails. Okay, so now other ARPA matters. So if you got, everybody got their spreadsheet in front of them so they can see? Okay, so,
I'll stay. Okay.
John Parent and Bill Cundiff have asked us to do the following reallocation into kind of a different bucket. Jim Haggerty mentioned this to me, I don't know, probably 2 years ago, kind of lose track of time. There's a space outside the townhouse that is treacherous in the winter. It dips and it ices over, and it's a hazard. So everybody wants it fixed. Bill's looked at it, he agrees, John has agreed, so they'd like to take some of John's excess ARPA money and fix that, and they think they're going to have it fixed before this winter. Certainly encumbered, but actually fixed. So both of them agree on the number, which is $110,000 to engineer it and then fix it, so the whole thing is $110,000. And so where that would come from is we would reallocate what John has left over from the senior center. See that $65,000 on the second line to the right?
Yep.
He's going to have about call it 30,000 left over for the 88 upgrades in that line 1. He's going to use 10,000 of that to put ramps in the flag school outside for people to be able to use to get in there. Okay, so that's 65 and call it 30, so that's 95. And then we could allocate the 20 from the McAuliffe room upgrade to them. That give them 115. They don't have the exact number yet, so we give them 115. That should work. And then they'd have to get us a number pretty quick to see what's left over.
For that project for the townhouse lot, there's an article, an older article, sitting on the books with about 47,000.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Just for that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
From what year?
It was, it's old, maybe, I don't know.
1812.
So we've been dealing with this for a long time.
Yeah,
I've been
Okay.
holding it.
yeah, good.
So then there's going to be, we don't need to allocate the two, so there's going to be plenty of money between what John's got left over for the senior center and what he's got left over in the ADA to do the work back there if they use the 47.
Right. I think the issue is the firm numbers, you know? I mean, that's what John's actually going to have left, you know, they think that the 110 is a real number, but they're going to go out to bid for the construction piece.
Do they know about the article?
Yes, yeah, we've talked about the article.
Oh.
Because neither one mentioned it to me when I've talked to them both in the last 24 hours. So neither
Okay.
one. Okay, so they don't need the whole 110, they need 110
They
less
don't.
47,
Yep.
Yeah,
right? You agree?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need to vote to move that delta, right? To, okay.
Does that include both sides, the east and the west? Because the west side is not perfect either over there, I don't think.
I think it is the west side,
But there-
but let Bill say.
This side over here is the east side. That's a real problem over
I
this.
thought it was the west side. Jim, is the problem the west or the east? East?
East, yeah.
Yeah, this is worse. Yeah.
This is east this way.
Yeah.
Hello, Mr. Cundiff.
We're trying to figure out what's east and what's west.
Good evening, everyone.
Hey,
I just wanted to clarify a few things. The 47,000 comes from an article for paving the townhouse parking lot as part of a septic system repair or something like that. And there is a grading issue with some of the pavement, so we're going to use that money to fix the puddle at the end of the ramp. John's got money for his ARPA allocation. However, I want to be clear, we currently have a contract with VHB to do the design and bid documents. Those are actually going out to bid tomorrow. And so a month from now, we'll get bids in. We'll have to contract with a company prior to the end of the year. VHB's estimate for the construction is 90,000. So the entire cost is 110,000 minus the 47 that we already have committed from that 2019, 2018 article.
okay, so
I still have a question.
You at least said exactly what we said, so we didn't say anything wrong on that one. So good. So we need $63,000 out of ARPA to do this.
Yeah.
Agree, Carla?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Bill, I do have a question, so though, to me, there's a sizable puddle on the east ramp out that door there toward Pilgrim Church, but there's also a problem on the west ramp over there. Does this deal with both sides?
It does.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we're going to have it both be ADA compliant, both ramps be ADA compliant. So
With no puddles?
no puddles.
No ice
graded-
skating
gra-
rinks?
Graded properly, suitable width, handrails, all of
Excellent.
it.
Good, thanks.
Okay, so I'm trying to keep this understandable. So the motion I'm going to make is to reallocate the excess money in the senior center bucket, which is $65,193.13, to a new bucket to basically fix the problems in the townhouse parking lot that we believe is going to cost $110,000.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, so that one's done, Carla. Okay,
How about the 10 for Flag School?
the what?
The 10 for Flag School?
Yeah, let's do, well, but that's ADA, so that's in the right bucket. I mean, it's ADA, facilities related, so that's in the right bucket,
Okay.
okay? But now he is going to have money left over. So my next motion is, so Sam, you want to explain what you would like to see done at the transfer station?
Yeah, we have automated electronic or external defibrillators at various places around town for people having a heart attack, places like Senior Center, there's one at the DPW office, townhouse, and several at the Public Safety Building. And we don't have one at the transfer station up in the pit area. And so if somebody had an event in the pit area or the swap shop, staff would have to run down to the DPW office and get the door unlocked, particularly on Saturday, for example, get the thing out, run back up. And that's the kind of thing that 4 or 5 minutes can make difference between life and death. So having one that's more easily accessible there, I think is a good investment here. And those cost anywhere from $1,500 to several $1,000s. And I guess I would have a question for Chief Puntini on this one in terms of what kind of AED we should buy if we're going to do this. I know there are ones that have a continuous connection via web link or a cell phone link, and the basic ones don't have a link to the internet or whatever, which seems to me might be sufficient for this particular use. But the more features you build in, the more it costs. So I'd like to figure out what the right unit would be. And yeah, if you have any input on that, or if you need to think about it or study it some, that would be fine too. But I'd like to know what the right number is to think about funding this with. I don't want to be underfunded, so.
Okay, and sorry, just if you don't mind, repeat the original question. I know I heard AEDs.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure I get it right.
We have AEDs around town in various places, here, Senior Center, and so forth.
Right. So to
We have
upgrade
one
those.
at the DPW office down at the lower level there. And so my theory was that if somebody has a heart attack at the pit or the recycle area or the swap shop, by the time somebody knows what the problem is, runs down, unlocks the office, figures it out, on a Saturday particularly, and gets back up there with the unit, it's got to be 4 or 5 minutes, which to me is life or death potentially. So if we had another unit at the pit in that office there, that would shorten the response time, and I
Yeah,
think would
so-
be a useful investment here.
Yeah, so more AEDs in the community are always better. You know, the ones that are connected to a cell service that give us a direct signal, there's value there, but I wouldn't really hang your hat on that. We really try to train the public to always follow up with a 911 call, because
Yeah.
that's where we're going to get detailed information.
Yeah.
You know, we're probably going to send a different response to something of a confirmed CPR in progress with an AED via 911 compared to just getting an alarm at off an AED box. So, you know, there's value to them, but I would just hate to see a false sense
But
of...
having the basic capacity there to respond quickly is sufficient response at this point.
Yeah,
I
the
think.
important thing is bystander CPR.
There'll be
applying
people
the aid
there.
as quick as you
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
And then, you know, follow up with a 911
Okay.
call. There's a lot of different AEDs out there. They're all good. You know, read into the, and I can assist you, read into the service contracts with them. Some do not require a service contract per the manufacturer. They strictly say, as long as the self-check is okay, consider them good to go until otherwise.
Yep.
Where some may require an annual service contract. So, just some stuff to consider.
Okay. I guess my proposal would be to, and I've looked at some of the prices, something like, $3,000 max should get us a very functional unit, and probably less than that. So, and then my proposal would be to allocate $2,500, $3,000, get input from the chief and his staff about what the right unit to purchase is, and once we do that, we can circle back and reallocate if we need to.
So can this get done pretty quick?
To purchase an AED,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could have that done in a matter of a week if we pick the model.
Yeah.
Okay, because
So-
we do want it done quick if we're going to do this.
Yeah, that's usually pretty in-stock type of equipment.
Yes.
So get, an AED, maybe a nice weatherproof box for it, and some accessories.
A case to hang in the office at the pit there.
Yeah, exactly, wherever you'd like to hang it, something nice and wall-mounted.
Good.
Marguerite?
My other question would be, it seems like it would be a good way to use up any remaining bits of ARPA money if there are other places in town that could use these.
I've looked around, Marguerite, and I think we have them at the playing fields now. And there's one at 21 Highland, for example, and the schools, I think, have them. So I couldn't think of any place else where we didn't have it at this point, but if you know someplace, that would
Does
be,
the library have one?
I think they do, but I'm not
I'm not sure
positive.
in the library. Maybe a suggestion, and, I can try reaching out unless somebody else has a better contact, is some of the local youth sports, so through the schools, just from personal experience doing CPR classes, it's nice to see when the teams actually have them. And so not just kind of reliant on it being at a field, but the teams actually traveling with it if they have away games, and, I think that's of some value as well.
I don't think we have a lot of money to do this with. I was looking.
Yeah, let's not get this too out of control here.
Just a
But
thought.
library is a pretty good idea, too.
We should check the library, yeah. I thought I remembered there was one there, but we should certainly check. So maybe two of them max, then.
All right, so we can allocate 6,000 tonight, if everybody agrees, right? And Marguerite, you'll check with the library to see if there's one, and let Chief Puttini know that he needs 2 instead of 1.
Would you like me to maximize the 6,000 if, or you want to hold it at two AEDs,
Yeah.
up to?
Probably 2 max, unless your staff is aware of someplace else that's at substantial risk.
No, that's fine, like I said,
Happy
just
to
for the sake
consider
of speaking of ARPA, like,
Yeah.
if you wanted.
I would
No,
suggest we simply leave it to the chief's judgment that he's got a budget of,
Yeah. I'll do the best-
$6,000
I'll do the best I can and distribute them through town with 6,000, unless you want to say no 2 AEDs and spend up to, and then I can, turn whatever back.
Okay.
Kathy, can we vote the 20,000 coming back first? Because we
Yes.
didn't do that.
Yes, Carla.
Okay.
Okay. I guess, is it possible for you to get some feedback to us in the next couple of weeks here? About
Yeah,
what the
I'll
plan-
work
what the
on that
plan
this
is?
week and next week.
Yeah, I mean, the basic ones, I think, are about $1,500, something
Correct.
like that, and then it goes.
Okay,
up from there.
these are easy, so can you come back and tell us, so Sam, will you take charge of this
Yep,
on the
okay.
22nd? You tell us what we're going to,
Yep.
what we're going to vote on?
Connect-
Okay.
I'll get some numbers and reach out in the next week.
Good,
All right,
thank
so we'll
you.
vote it then,
Okay,
okay?
Okay.
Good.
All right. But I will,
Thanks.
you may have to remind me again, but we will put it back in first and then vote it. So thank you, Chief.
thank you.
Okay, so, Mr. Cundiff, if you're listening, it looks like you're going to have probably another $100,000 of ARPA money. I've got your email with all your list, so you may want to look at it again and see if it's the right order, and we can talk this week. We won't know until the 22nd, when we hear from Kat McKee again. But I know we're going to have 40, and I know we're going to have 20, less whatever the AEDs cost. So we're going to have at least 50 for you.
Well, and then John should know his numbers more firmly
Yep.
on the 22nd.
But that is it.
That's
The
it.
22nd, okay.
you want to allocate the 50 now, and then we do the delta on the 22nd?
Well, I didn't bring my list, for one thing, as far as what Bill wants, because
Yeah.
we needed to hear from Kat first to really know where that was going. So I want to get that out of the way. So I would, Al, if I brought the list, but I didn't. So I'd say we wait to the 22nd, but that is it. We are going to finish allocation that night.
Yeah, all that is easy spend or
Yes,
cover. I think.
believe me, he understands the rules.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so yes, the answer is yes. Okay, that's all I think we got to say for ARPA tonight.
Okay, so the 20's not back yet. We'll do
No,
that
we're not-
next,
We haven't yet, so just
Okay.
make sure I do it,
next time.
okay? Or we do
Okay.
it.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you. Have a good day.
Thank
Now,
you.
before we move on, okay, before we completely leave the ARPA topic, I just wanted to pass on that at the first meeting of the 21 Highland Future Use Committee, there was some discussion about, is it, and actually, I think this is even in the charge of the committee. Is it possible for the town to commit some money in terms of a study, I don't know, a feasibility study or something like that, something that we talked about at an earlier phase, about getting some professional opinion about what are, what's the current condition of the building, what type of investments would you need to bring it up to code and keep it, running for the next X period of time. Now, and I said I would bring it back to this board with the caveat that because the money needs to be firmly committed by the end of this year, we're very, very late into this process. So I'm just passing this on to the board. It sounds like, the devil is in the details, right? Even when we talked about this about a year ago, we talked about kind of a vague level, but we're not really very specific about what this feasibility study would be focused on specifically, which makes it more difficult to think about who would be the right vendor to do something like this. So I think maybe a starting point is for the committee to first talk to John and get some information about, John Parent, what information he can provide without having to use any ARPA money.
so Andrew, are you talking about feasibility for the broad thing, what all the building could be used for? Or are you talking about feasibility as to
Yes.
what shape the building's in?
I guess a little bit of both, but.
Because the first one's hard to do. I mean, that's a
Yeah,
big
that
one.
is difficult. Yeah.
Didn't you come up with a number at some point as far as what you thought needed to be done in 21 Highland? Or am I dreaming?
Michael.
I wouldn't hang a hat on any number I came up with, but it was, it really depends, what's to be done, it depends on what you're going to do with the building.
Right.
I think there's no sense, unless you're just trying to understand what it takes to stabilize the building until you can figure something else out. But until you have an idea about what you're going to do, and frankly, I don't think we should be spending a lot of money until, because, at least some of the options are finding a new owner for the building.
I agree with you that this is putting the cart in front of the horse.
But
So
I've
you guys-
heard people who I think know about this stuff observe that somebody like Mass Development has technical money available for this kind of thing. And the comment was it's pretty easy to get, like $40,000, $60,000, something like that for these kind of studies from people. So I think it's worth exploring. Andrew, I can dig around and see what I can find.
Rob Anderson has told us that they've got money available to encourage towns to use underutilized buildings, which is probably fits the
Yeah.
bill. But I know John Parent knows a lot about this building, so I still think you start with him.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And get his opinion on at least the bones of it before we spend money. And I agree with Al, until you know which way you're going, why would you spend money? Because if you're going to sell it, for example, you sell it as is, right? You're not going to do a lot of work on it. You're going to say, go look at it and, make a bid based on what you see there.
Right. Yep.
So, for example, when we were talking to the church, Bill DePietri went in and he told Father Flynn that he thought he was very pleased with the way, he was surprisingly pleased about the structure of the building and the condition. And he said it would take the church about $500,000 to do what they need to do to make it what they wanted to make it, put the basketball court in, do the Montessori school. So that's not just upgrading the infrastructure, that's truly doing what they need to do. So
Yep.
he told Father Flynn he was surprised about how little it would take to get what they wanted to. But
Now,
that's
yeah,
one.
my overall impression is the building isn't going to fall down,
Yeah,
but, we got to have a plan for the building before we start spending a lot of money on it, spending any money on it.
Andrew,
again,
it doesn't sound like there's a lot of appetite to give you ARPA money right now.
but grant funds, again, are designed for this kind of thing, so I think that could be an interesting possibility.
So Debbie, you want to speak to this one?
Yeah, I'll speak to this. Debbie Demiria, 58 Flag Road. So member of the planning board, and speaking as a private citizen. So I did talk to facilities, Mr. Parent, about this, and he gave me kind of, I think, what you call the bones of what a first phase would look like if you were going to do anything with the building. Of course, this takes into account that the 21 Highland Future Use Committee is going to come up with something for you guys, but regardless, this has to do with really a conditions report about the sort of the envelope of the building. I think that the underutilized grant from Mass Housing had to do with the inside use. I'm not really sure. But no matter whether you, for example, add on to the building, put a swimming pool, put a gymnasium, sell it, I think it's still useful to know, and I knew that, I suspected actually that the 21 Highland Future Use Group would want to know, like, well, what's the condition of the building? But certainly I had a conversation with Mr. Parent, so he said that he had given me an initial quote of $20,000, but then he made a call to Spencer Architects Preservation Group, and the number came down to $18,000, and he told me it was to hire a historic architect to conduct a conditions assessment report, including an architectural assessment with lift survey, structural assessment, regulatory analysis, and proposed budget. So, I mean, obviously, as I mentioned in my email, he doesn't support this in any way. He was just giving me some information. But I think he said it was a first good step, because coming up with any kind of a number, whether it's something the town wants to do in keeping the building, or whether another group is, going to sell the building, hopefully the building is still going to stay. As you know, it's on the National Historic Register of Historic Places. It's also on the State Register of Historic Places, one of only about 4,000 buildings. It's a very special building to a lot of people because it represents a sense of community. So whatever gets done with that building, I would think that we'd still want to preserve the envelope of it. And so the number that Mr. Parent gave me was $18,000. He did, as I mentioned, shave some off, because he's two things he mentioned, and I don't want to speak for him, but one had to do with the ADA. He has that under control. It's probably compliant now, but I think he says he likes to put concrete instead of asphalt, but that isn't part of this assessment because he knows he can do that. And the other has to do with how the building would be heated. So he wouldn't have them take a look at the chimney he mentioned to me for any use for heating, because I think he has plans of other things like putting in a split or some kind of heat pump or something like that. So really, if you were to hire an architect, whether it's for CPC, or I came tonight to potentially speak to you about ARPA, it would really be to get a conditions assessment of the building structure itself, irregardless of whether anything happens, what happens inside, attached, or anything else like that. So I think that number is probably, when you speak to him, if you speak to him, that's probably the number that he's going to give you. And I have to, I didn't know the 21 Highland Group was meeting. I'll try to attend some of their meetings. But I think also, if I were sitting on that committee, I'd be wondering the same thing. I just wanted to mention in the charge that you gave them, number 6, I think it was, is to identify alternative sources of funding for any proposed use of the building. That's why I came to you tonight for ARPA. I thought if you had, and I still would like to say, if you have any money left over, and you have a long list, and I know you have a long list, but $18,000 could be obligated by the end of the year. I think it would help out the 21 Highland Future Use Committee, and I think it would also just put some of the things to rest. I think it would be put to good use. So, thank you.
Debbie, I'd comment, I think the appropriate venue for that is the 21 Highland Committee. So, I mean, to me, that request should come through them in terms of what they think needs to be done with this.
Well, as you know, I put in a CPC application, but I do plan to speak
Right.
with them as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, I'm confused by the CPC application because you need site control for those things, and the town owns that building, so.
Yep.
I'm puzzled as to how that works. But again, I think that the 21 Island Committee is the right place to
Yeah,
initiate
I'll
that kind of
just-
request.
Yep.
And obviously, that's late in the game, so I don't know when they're going to meet next.
Oh, okay, yeah, I wasn't even aware they
What I
met.
will do is I will send an email to the committee that just summarizes the discussion that we've had and let them know that our next meeting is on the 22nd.
Mhm.
So, I mean, there was only a first meeting.
Yeah,
It didn't even result in the election of a chair yet. So, we'll see, but the best I can do is just pass on the information.
yeah, right. There's limited time to respond here, unfortunately, so.
And Lynn Spencer, we know well, right? She's the one that's hired to do the historic architectural assessment.
Sure.
So it
Yeah.
sounds like you're already assuming that's what, but anyway, so it sounds like that's way the cart in front of the horse. But Andrew, who's going to, not to beat on you, who's doing the
yeah.
minutes of that committee? If they didn't elect anybody?
I think someone volunteered, but if you ask me exactly.
Yeah, well, you're not on the committee, so it's not your,
That's
not
right,
your
I'm not on
issue.
the-
That's right.
Yeah.
This isn't a trick question.
If we were to seriously consider this, I'd like to hear from Mr. Parent directly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, I agree.
Yep.
Okay, so, I think we're ready to move on from ARPA?
Yep.
Okay, so the next one, Al, is the discussion of applying to the Metro West Rec for admission. Al and Sam.
I'm going to turn this over to Sam because he's the one who drafted the letter, which seemed pretty reasonable to me.
Yeah, and again, from conversations we've had with the Metro West Rec people, they seem to be eager to have us involved and want to move forward with the paperwork as quickly as possible. So I think that it's my understanding, I think Al agrees, that the next step is for us to confirm the town meeting vote, and we want to go forward, and let's get working on the paperwork, including the MOU, or the IMA, rather, for the rec.
I think at some point it will be appropriate for us to meet in executive session to discuss a negotiation over an IMA, but we're not there yet. You know, I think we'll take the win, apply for membership, and then the ball will be in their court to respond.
Yeah, except I don't know whether we can go into executive session to negotiate rec terms. I don't think we did that last time.
Didn't last time, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's limited to
Yeah, I'm not,
litigation and real estate
CBAs,
purchase.
yeah.
Well, an IMA is a contract.
Yeah, but
Yeah, but
it's.
there's no
this-
this broad
This has
contract,
happened
yeah.
before, we've looked into it, it's not as broad as you.
All right, I'll ask town council, and
Okay.
we'll do what the right thing is.
yeah.
And remember, too, the date for the grant submission is going to get here soon, too. It's the first
Yep.
week in March, if it's
Yep.
what it was 2 years ago.
Yep, yep.
But it's got to go in, it's got to be talked about, it's got to be put together.
And, yep, town council's input would be helpful, but I agree with Andrew, I'm not sure that it actually fully fits under the umbrella, but,
Whatever the rules are.
yep.
And not to offend Grafton or Westboro, but if you remember last time, we seemed to kind of lead the charge on this and push things along. And I know the Westboro chief, I think, actually wrote the grant, the fire chief wrote the grant,
Yep.
maybe. But anyway, we should definitely be part of that process.
Yep.
And understand the numbers.
But again, this is the first step for engagement here, so let's get the letter out and,
Yep. Okay,
and take it
So
from there.
I think actually there should be a motion by a motion and a vote by the board to approve the letter of application.
So moved.
Second?
all in favor?
Yeah, I can't remember, who signs that letter? Do we all sign it, or just,
You've got me signing it so
Chair,
far,
good,
but,
okay. and have the chair sign? Okay, good.
All right, so I'll prepare that for you.
all right. Okay, you're happy with that one, Al? Yep, okay. All right, let's go back to discussing our fiscal year '25 goals. Andrew, you put this on here so you can lead the charge on this one.
Okay, sure. So as I was reading the minutes of our last meeting, I mean, a couple goals, thinking of things that we could accomplish between now and the, the next town election, let's say May 2025 are, we had talked about this state of the town report idea. And Sam, I think you had as part of that, master plan implementation committee, what that's doing.
Connection
Yeah,
with the
okay.
state of town, I think, yeah, that's still a good idea.
Another is, two others, and one's on the agenda, is review of the public safety staffing study and implementing recommendations of that. I think that's so tied into the budget cycle that that's something that's going to happen kind of anyway. And the other is, or two others are processing the recommendations from the DOR report, financial review. And the other is repairs to the old burial ground before the tricentennial, so we know we get the railing, or that's more the town common. That CPA application is in. So I thought, Kathy, if you thought it made sense, people could just volunteer to lead the charge on 1, 2, or 3 of these, and because I think we always have a little bit of an opportunity between now and when we really gear up in the budget cycle to get some things done, and that's a way that we could move forward on these. So I could raise my hand to work on this kind of state of the town idea, and maybe thinking about how you would publicize it and what the form of the report would take. Obviously, then we'd have to work together on what the content of this report is. That would be important, but that's something that you set a goal to do at kind of the beginning of January, and if it's the case that we do this and not a lot of people tune in, or there's not a lot of views of the video, that's fine, but at least we're trying.
No, it's outreach, yeah. that's
Exactly.
good. I'd be happy to help from the master plan side.
Okay, yep,
So you two take that one?
sure.
It's Andrew's, I'm the assistant, so. I'm the spear carrier. Andrew's leading the charge.
All right. So what about the old burial ground work? And I'm looking at the person who I think would do a great job on that. There you go.
Will do.
And of course, work with Kevin Miller, right?
Yep, and also Sally Waters is extremely helpful.
Yep.
And I've also been talking to Bill Cundiff. In fact, actually today, they've cleaned up some of the woods around there, but there's a little bit more that's still needing attention. So, and that's good, but that doesn't go to the issue of the stones. So we'll see. And can I speak to the bylaw compliance also?
In a minute, you can. Let's get through Andrew's new list here.
I have a question about the old burial ground. I'd be happy to help with that from the standpoint of the trust funds.
Yep. So I think you need Sam because he
Yes.
knows where the money's buried.
I guess that to me, there, and it's not in the old burial ground. I think that the process is that some sort of a plan to say, here's what needs to be done, and then a cost estimate, and maybe a phased plan over time, because probably there's a lot more to do than we can afford immediately. And the trust funds are good on spending a little bit of money out of these funds, but not large amounts typically, because they want to protect the principal. So if there's a plan that I could take back to the trust fund committee and ask for funding, I think that would be a useful process to follow.
Great, okay.
Sam, related to that, I think related enough, I can bring this up. I was talking to someone yesterday who's involved in CPC, and they, I think, are going to want the trust funds to pay for what they can pay for as far as there's an application to CPC this year to do some work at the rural cemetery on the water tower.
Water tower, yes.
Yep, and so I think they're going to come and ask you guys what you have available to do that first.
Okay.
Before they commit, so just get ready for
Okay.
having to input
Yeah,
their.
there's one fund that is limited to the rural cemetery, and another fund that is more general to town cemeteries, so it depends on the source there, but there's money, but not, hundreds of thousands of dollars, but at least some money, and so we can figure out what makes sense there.
So I don't know what the amount is. I know they also, the retaining wall on the rural cemetery.
Yeah,
there's
that's a big
issues.
one. That was, they had an estimate for that. There's a stone wall at the south rear side of it that is in fairly bad shape apparently, and they had a study done on that some years ago, and it was like $50,000 or $100,000 or something, so.
What I heard about that was that there are graves beneath it, so they can't move heavy equipment in there.
Oh, okay.
And the water's frozen and melted enough so that it's bulging.
Push the wall out.
But you
yeah.
can't put heavy equipment on top of it.
Okay.
Okay, so we did Stay the State, we did Old Burial Ground. What was the next one, Andrew?
DOR report.
Yeah, we definitely, so I'm happy to work on that one. Anybody want to join me with that one? Al, you want to do that? Okay, so Al and I'll do that one.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in there.
Yeah.
And I think the challenge is, how do you phase that out? Because they're good things, but not going to happen immediately.
And Al, we should probably work with advisory on that one too. They're certainly interested.
There's 2 or 3 big ones there.
Yeah,
They probably have to break it into about 4 parts.
okay, so that's it for the
Sure.
minutes. Okay, now can we go back to the old ones, because I have made progress on my goals and I want credit.
Sorry,
And Marguerite, you'll
we're
get
out of
credit
time
for-
tonight, sorry.
So, last time you recall, Andrew was very glad to check off his submission to the CPC. And then the next one, of course, was dealing with the dump at the corner of Newton Street and Main Street, which is not that easy to deal with. But I've made progress, really good progress since then. So, without going into details, because it's too early, I had is Jim still here? No. I had the best meeting with Tony Kwan, call it 3 weeks ago. Jim brought him to my office, and he's fascinating. And he really wants to help the town. And he's very interested in helping the town with that corner lot. And so, TBD, more to be talked about, but he was very interested in helping us get something done with that corner lot. He's still very interested in doing the project, I guess it comes off Overlook Drive. He's got like 16 acres right there.
Right.
That's why he built the wastewater treatment plant that he spent $3.5 million on. So he's still interested in that, but he goes, look, I'll do it the way you want. I want to do it the way the town wants. I want to, give this person a discount, this person a 30% discount. So he's really fascinating. He's 10 steps ahead of everybody else. You can just see his mind going. He brought his daughter, who works for Goldman Sachs, MBA. She's very interested in helping him too. So it was just such a refreshing conversation for someone who really wants to help the town. So all I'm saying is I've made at least one step toward hopefully doing something about the dirt dump.
Wonderful. And I don't know if you saw the Concom meeting recently, but the property owner was in there and said that he will have something done about that by the next Concom meeting, so not
Good,
clear
so I will
exactly what.
I haven't talked to him, but that's my next call, is to let him know that Mr. Kwan is interested in that lot. And then second, Hopkinton is starting to move again. So they are actually forming for lack of a better word, some type of committee to actually deal with this. But they have now authorized Tim Tees to go to 50% drawings, so they're spending a ton of money, but they've acknowledged in an email that we have said, we're not going further until an IMA gets sent. So it's actually in an email from the town manager. So it looks like they really are starting to try to get this going. They actually mentioned our article, so they want us to go ahead and do that piece of it, but they said in it, they acknowledge that a letter's been sent that says no until we get the IMA sent. So I actually think that may be starting to percolate again.
Okay.
Good.
All right? Okay, so that's the credit I wanted. All right, too. Okay, Marguerite,
Good
thank
job.
you. Marguerite?
Oh, the bylaws, the bylaw compliance is looking like it's sort of under control because we have a new building commissioner, and also Kelly O'Brien in his office is quite good about compliance. So it's kind of shifted to working with the building department and the planning board and the town planner to do some language updates in some of the zoning bylaws. So that's where we are right now. We met yesterday and talked about that, and it's going to be, I think, 174-8 and 12, having to do with parking to begin with. Anyway, so discussions are ongoing. We're meeting again in a month. So it's kind of not compliance anymore. It's bylaw language update.
So, I think that's all very worthy in looking at, but the original thing that I think we were looking at was like a website functionality, right, of,
Yes.
yeah, so that this has drifted a lot from it. to
Well, the website
where it's-
functionality thing, if I can say,
Yep.
it was, the DPW investigated it and does not want it.
Okay, so I think that's basically,
Mission accomplished.
well, not mission accomplished.
Well, I'm not sure it's
so just-
accomplished, but
Just their,
NA now, maybe.
Mission
Yeah.
closure.
not
Yes.
applicable, but,
Huh, so they don't want it, huh?
No, they didn't want it. He had first thought it would be a good idea, but he did some more research, Bill, and decided that it would be, they've got a system that they're using now that works okay for them, and it seems to be. And so I guess the bylaw compliance is, it's either going to be that or it's going to be building department with lighting, noise, et cetera.
I just think that the three goals that we talked about were, this is a realistic set of things that we could work on between now and, let's say, April.
But doesn't prevent you from
Yep.
continuing to doing what you're doing, because there probably, if there's some low-hanging fruit that we can tell, and parking has come up in several of the recent new tenants, for sure, as far as issues go, that did seem to be kind of antiquated as far as how it's looked at. So, yeah, and Al's asked Dave Ferris to weigh in as far as things that they think might be low-hanging
Right,
fruit.
right.
So keep going, right, and see what we can come up with.
Okay, so I would say bylaw compliance, okay, that's sort of not a thing, but bylaw language, it's been pointed out in several places, the code is from 1980. And it's also, as Chris pointed out, it contradicts itself within the code. So,
As does state law, so nothing new.
anyway, so that's where we are.
But to be clear, you know, the true zoning, big zoning project that we know we need to do, that's not what we're talking about here. We're just talking about some specific things that might improve things and help people get into
Right.
spaces faster, et cetera, and easier without.
And the planning board actually had a discussion about that at a recent meeting. They had a PowerPoint slide that says, here are some of the things we need to think about doing, and some of those things on the list that you're talking about here, Marguerite. So I think there's some momentum around that to maybe come up with some suggestions, I would hope, for next spring's town meeting to say, here are zoning bylaw updates that we can start moving on and get a few of these things incrementally done. I think that'd be very productive.
And Mimi's working with her, so
Yeah.
she's got Mimi.
Yeah, we are. And one of the issues was shared parking, where you don't need quite so many parking spaces if you've got businesses or residents mixed, where certain people will be there in the daytime, but then they'll leave, and then other people will be there in the evening. So the issue was, you don't need to completely slather all these parking spaces in. What you do is you leave part of it trees and whatever, and if it becomes clear later on that you will need parking spaces, you can turn that into it, but in the meantime, you've got grass and trees instead of just more parking than you really need.
Asphalt.
Yes,
All right.
so that was a big one. I think that's what we're working on right now.
So you think we've covered that, Andrew?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, the last one is the start of the review of the public safety study. Come on up, chiefs.
The big event.
We definitely will not complete this tonight. So we started, we've got a second lieutenant, right? So check that one off. So what I thought we'd do tonight is just hear from both of you as far as, what you think of the study, where you think we should go specifically next, knowing that, we can't add 10 people overnight. This will have to be done incrementally and with a lot of thought. So maybe hear from you two first, see who's got questions. Anybody else wants to make a comment, and that's what we'll do tonight. And then this is going to continue. Okay? So we'll start with you, Chief Newell.
Okay. So obviously, we were happy that the study recognized the needs of the department. It was a very thorough job. They went into a lot of formulas and breaking down exactly, showing, hours worked, how much training and everything can take you out of the rotation, not be on a patrol. I did put together a little bit of cliff notes. I can kind of go through those kind of quickly. So it's,
Sure.
It's a long study, 35 pages for just the police side, 7 pages for the dispatch side, and then, for the fire department, there's a whole other section. So there's a lot of material, but I was very happy with the way that it was broken down, and kind of very thorough job. They recognize the commitment that we have for customer service to this town, which I thought was great. They really went into the calls and the base, like why we're responding to certain things and going above and beyond. Sometimes to our own detriment, because it appears that we're doing a lot more and have a lot more than we actually have. But that's always been kind of the philosophy that we have with our department. That's kind of what we have our field training officers drill into our new crews. So, also the community has high expectations for us. They really do. It's, pay a lot in taxes, and you have a certain expectation from our department and our policing and keeping the community safe. It also recognized the retention problems that we're having and the discrepancy in pays and lack of specialty assignments that are keeping people in agencies versus going to other departments that are paying more or offering more of these specialty assignments. So they did a good job of kind of breaking that down and where we're at in a comparable basis with other communities. And it really addressed the need, the worry that I have about having a reactive department. As you see, like on our social media, we want to be proactive and get out there in the community and be a part of things. It's going to be hard if I have people working doubles to fill open shifts, and then they can't stay on for those additional hours. I can't force people in to do things like parades or anything, It talked about how our detective and our SRO has been pulled from their dedicated duties into our patrol function in order to supplement the patrol officers that we need, and those are two very important positions that really need to be separated outside the department. Especially the amount of time that a detective needs to take in order to thoroughly investigate cases and follow through on things. There's a lot of stuff that comes in through patrol that then gets filtered to the detective unit to follow up on, that currently we have one detective and one part-time detective that helps out when he can. But all the hiring that we're doing, all the background, the detective does all the backgrounds. The background investigation itself is a ton of work. Following through on previous employers, making sure that we find the right people to do this job here. So those two things are very important, and they're also, for the SRO, it's specifically in post legislation that the mandatory training that they have to attend. And having our SRO is Julia Fontana, she can't be dedicated in the schools. She can't stay in the schools the entire time. She's handling calls. She's going to accident scenes. We're not able to provide the service that we want to for that position. And the study recognized that. It also recognized, yes, we have a population of 10,000, a little bit over, but it also recognized the amount of motoring transient population that comes through our town, through Route 9, 85, 30, and the amount of calls it can generate just from those roadways themselves, whether it's a drunk driver that ties up 2 officers because of an arrest, or 3 because one has to wait for the towing company while the other 2 book the prisoner at the station. But when you have 3 on patrol, then that's, all of our officers are tied up, which is, concern for the town. It talked about how much, it costs to fund the SPD annually per resident, which is $232. Talks about the high rate of calls that each one of our officers are specifically handling. We're up to about 900 calls per officer annual, and having more manpower would cut down on those amount of calls so that they can do more thorough jobs with the calls that they do have to handle, and allow for more time to be proactive on the road. Because arrests and those types of things causes a lot of paperwork, and it causes a lot of time sitting in front of a computer, writing reports, sending things to the court. That's time off the road where they can't be out proactively on patrol and deterring crime by having a high amount of officers visible out in the public. I covered all this stuff. And then, again, they went through like a whole model of the breakdown of the amount of hours that the officers are actually on patrol versus how much because of contractual obligations or tasks that they're not on patrol. It ended up being about 17 and a half weeks of not being able to provide the service for patrol, whether it's training, tasks, and the things that I talked about. And that's a lot of time. They went over the calls for service. They analyzed our calls for service. They talked about lowering the calls per officer. They talked about adding a second lieutenant, which is something that we very happily were able to address. That's going to be able to help us with the administrative part of the job and running and managing and organizing and having this department be a professional organization. It's going to be a huge help for us. And then it talked about, this cycle that we're in when we're hiring, we're training, we're spending about $56,000 for the hiring process itself. And then they get into our rotation, and then we're spending a lot of money on training, most of it mandatory, some of it specialty, and then we lose them to another organization because of things like I talked about, pay discrepancy or lack of specialty assignments. But we need more bodies in order to open up those things, like specialty assignments, because yes, we can have them in name, but if the person can't dedicate the time to them, then they're just a name, like the SRO, or if we want to do a drone unit or something different that's going to attract these young officers to stay in Southborough. We need to be able to do that. The loss of the officers that, the amount of money that we've lost by losing these officers to other communities is about $500,000. And that's just money out the door that we basically spent time, dedication to making sure they go to the classes, get the training, get all the up-to-date stuff they need. And then they're here with us for a year, two, maybe a little bit more, and then we just train them for another department to reap the benefits of. One of our officers, we had him fully trained all the way up to advanced accident reconstruction, spent a ton of money on him, and then, again, because another department was offering $90,000 walking in the door, they were able to take him and benefit from the training that we spent to get him to that point. Very frustrating as a chief. It's very frustrating for the officers that work alongside the people that are leaving. So we need to stop the bleeding. And I feel that, the study is really an in-depth look of the things that we need to do in Southborough.
So Chiefs, trying to stay on the big picture for a moment, do you agree with the conclusions in the study as far as what we need to do? Is there anything else that you think we need to do? Is there anything in there you think that we shouldn't have to do?
I think I agree with the study. I think it's a good start that, again, we need bodies in order to provide the things that I've talked about tonight. What good is a traffic enforcement unit if you just have one guy who's just driving around, separated out from patrol, but then it's just him, and then, he goes on days off, and there's just lack of coverage for those types of things. We need the bodies in order to make this department work. We need more like the study said, we need 6 dedicated just to patrol. And then we need the lieutenant, we need the SRO, and we need the detective that is separated out. And they need to have that separation out in order for their job function to happen. There's detective meetings that they have to go to. There's all sorts of things that we can't right now follow up on. And that's why I feel like we're on the fast track to being a reactive police department, because we don't have the dedicated manpower to address the staffing need that we have. So I think that we really do need to come up with a plan, and I want to work with the town and figure out something that's going to be best for both sides and best for the taxpayers. But yeah, we are in that critical need, because we keep losing people, we keep going through overtime money just to fill these open shifts.
Mhm.
We need to have the amount of manpower on the road in order to affect.
So I don't think you meant what you said a minute ago. You said the study was a start. If we did everything in that study, I would hope that's more than a start.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm at
Hopefully
the
in
start of the conversation.
Okay, start and an end, maybe. Okay, so we're just trying to get big picture tonight. So anybody have questions for Chief Newell before we go to Chief Patini?
A comment?
Go ahead.
Thanks for the summary. I thought that the report was pretty well done, as a matter of fact. And I see really 2 issues here that we've hit on. One is you need bodies, but also you need to keep bodies. And so the report didn't really deal much in terms of how you do that. And one way that we've talked about is to try to find ways through the new CBA to improve that, which I think will help. And as you suggested, people have more time to focus on their dedicated function. Hopefully that'll make it easier to retain them as well. But it sure seems to me that movement in the direction of additional bodies through some sort of a phased approach is, I would say, overdue here. And I, at least personally, am interested in finding a way to get some of that in the FY26 budgeting process here and start communicating this, so.
Yeah, the study does, I mean, the beginning of the study, well, I'm sorry, at the end of the study, the conclusion, it does identify this as an immediate need.
No.
Which again, we've been operating for a long time. In the past, we've had reserve officers. We've had them available to take open shifts. We could have a multitude of reserve officers that would be able to help us out. Post took away that. So now we're relying on officers, full-time officers solely.
Right.
And we haven't been able to catch up.
Yeah. So I guess my bottom line question is, if we think about next steps, I mean, I would be interested in some sort of a phased recommendation from you. If we can have one additional body in FY '26, if we can get 2 additional bodies, how would you spread that out over time to give you the fastest path toward sort of a more stable environment here? Because I think, for me at least, unlikely we're going to be able to do too much in '26. But as I think some of your predecessors have seen, having a 3-year plan or whatever, getting people accustomed to the concept is a good path to get this stuff done. So that, to me, will be an important part of the next conversation here is, what should we be thinking about in terms of FY '26, 7, 8 kind of numbers?
I think your idea is a good one. Why not tonight agree that I'd like you to put together a, call it 3-year plan, 4-year plan, 3-year plan to, if you had to do it over 3 years, we can't hire 6 people overnight or whatever the number is. How would you do it? What would come first? So that would be helpful to us to have something to work with as far as how that might work if it really were a phased plan.
I think we need to shorten that up, to be honest. I really think, again, we've been limping along for a while now, and the study really, it recognizes as an immediate need. And if it comes down to, we hold some meetings, we put out some surveys to the public, we need to be able to provide the service that the public expects from us. And if we delay it out and then we lose more people, we delay it out, we're never going to get to that point in time where we're going to have enough people on the road, because as we've seen over the last few years, it's just been a cycle of losing people and having those extra shifts open.
So, Chief, my question for you, it seems like there's 2 problems. One is the pay scale, and one is the number of people. Could you talk a little bit about?
Marguerite, we're going to talk about pay in the executive session next, so you're going to hear lots of details there. So I'd hold that discussion till then, right? And then what was your second?
I just was asking, you can hire people, but if the pay scale's not adequate, there it is, just saying.
And then a lot of a lot of departments have the problem of a low morale or they're losing people because of those reasons. We have a great morale in the department. The low morale, the issues that we have is when you're working along somebody and all of a sudden they tell you they're going to be leaving for another department that's going to be paying them 20, 30 grand more.
Yep.
That's tough to contend with. But we have good sergeants in place, we have a great lieutenant, and we're leading this department in the right way, in a more compassionate and empathetic way than the past. So we have everything in place on the inside. It's just a matter of getting the people in the positions that we need that have been identified in the study.
And my concern about the plan is that as much as we would like, even if I wanted to add 6 officers in FY '26, there's always town meeting to convince. And I got a lot of feedback on don't raise my taxes. And so I think having a plan of how we'd like to do it, and then maybe some fallback positions to say if we can't get town meeting support for, option number 1, what would we do with option number 2? Not that we shouldn't try for an aggressive approach on this, but realistically, we've certainly seen people stand up at town meeting and say, I propose that we reduce budget X by $100,000 or whatever, so.
I will say, though, I have seen an overwhelming amount of support from the public, whether it's, a town meeting talking to people, whether it's through our social media, whether it's through emails.
Yep.
I think that, the concern is there on their side.
Right.
They read the police logs and they hear about a break-in or a follow-up, and we're trying to deliver the best possible service to like I said, the residents.
And I think people understand and appreciate that. And I think the sales job you have and Chief Puntini has actually for additional bodies is a lot easier than pushing for a new street sweeper or something like that. So there's certainly more momentum and support for the concept, but ultimately, again, it's been a tough sell on the tax base, so.
So how about this? Obviously, we know what to do with all in 1 year, it's what the report says. Do a 2-year and a 3-year plan. How about that? As far as implementing what it says.
I also think it makes sense to coordinate this with the advisory committee, because, you know, you go back to, I guess it would have been the meeting we had in January, right? We had our early January joint meeting with advisory about the budget. I guess it makes sense, and that's where we started to talk about a lot of these things, right? We didn't have the public safety staffing study yet, but I think maybe it makes sense to maybe a joint meeting just on this topic, but just to advance that discussion,
Yep.
right? So that, you know, there was a lot of, I felt like that January meeting, we felt like we had a lot of people going in a lot of different directions, right? And that's why at least the second lieutenant didn't get into the budget for the last budget cycle, but then with additional time. I guess for this additional round of hires, which is going to involve a lot of money, and probably makes sense to involve the advisory committee first, so there's just more time to answer questions and understand, you know, your perspective.
You're right. You've got-
As to recruitment and retention.
You got 4 at Marguerite's Library. The other 4, we all come from advisory, right? So that is the group that's supposed to basically recommend to town meeting with the budget. They know more than most people come to town meetings, so they're their eyes and ears. So we definitely should involve them now and not later. But I still think a good start is for you to start thinking how you would implement this over time, as much as you may be loath to do that, because it's hard to imagine this all being sucked up in 1 year.
I'll leave it at that. I just, you know, I think I would encourage everybody to reach out to the public too, to start asking, you know, how do you feel about the staffing study, and how do you feel about what the department needs, and, you know, fire department as well. Our public safety needs to have some backing.
And we agree, Chief, and we appreciate your advocacy for that. And I agree, ask the way you just ask in a vacuum, they say yes. But then, when they see what the cost is, it might not be that robust of a yes. That's easy to say yes to, and then show me what it's going to cost me. So if it didn't cost anything, we'd be all for it.
But I think part of our job is to come up with a proposal, a plan that, you know, the chief can provide strong input to, and then work to communicate that to the public in a variety of ways with the advisory committee and others. And we can do outreach over the next months here during the budget prep season and try to reach people about explaining what's happening here and why we think it's the right thing to do.
Al?
It makes no sense to talk about adding officers until we solve the turnover problem, because all we're doing is continuing the turnover problem. So that seems to me to be the number one priority to resolve, and I know we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. The other thing is, you know, the town is heavily siloed, you know, and we need to make sure that, and this, you know, is part of advisory's responsibility, but it's also ours, to understand sort of the budget impacts. You know, my back of the envelope estimate is that, you know, this is going to add $750,000 to the budget, roughly. And, you know, we got other departments that also have worthy needs. We sat here and listened to Pam give a very compelling argument for the need to increase resources for our senior centers, because frankly, it's in our financial interest to keep seniors in their homes, because when they sell their homes, we go from cash flow positive to cash flow negative. So we need to understand, by the way, I think you're doing a good job. I think you're doing a very good job. We can't treat this in isolation. It has to fit into the overall budget. You know, I remain extremely concerned about this year's budget because we're entering into union negotiations. I won't say anything more than that. And what the taxpayers can bear. You know, we've seen over the last 20 years something on the order of $2 million of budget shifted from the non-residential to the residential side, and that trend looks like it's going to continue absent some very substantial changes. And so I get the need. There are lots of needs, and we got to hand that against all of the other needs in town and the needs of people to be able to afford their taxes. It's, you know, it's not an easy job.
And we haven't even gotten to the fire department yet.
Madam Chair, may I speak?
Of course.
Thank you. I think that we are guessing what the residents of this town would like to spend their tax money on. I think we need to ask them whether they'd be willing to pay additional to support the police department. I know advisory is very good about saving money. The select board tries to be conservative about spending money. But I think if we ask the residents in this town, we would know whether they would support this or not. And I don't think anyone has asked them yet, just saying.
Okay. Chief Puntini.
So to echo Chief Newell, I think the study was very well written, and I think it really captured a snapshot of the Southborough Fire Department. Currently, we're not facing as much of the turnover and retention problems that the police department may be facing, but what we are facing is a recruitment issue. So, you know, the last few open positions we've had, so go back 15, 20 years ago, one open position in a town like Southborough would result in 10 to 20 qualified applicants. You would have, you know, your pick of truly qualified applicants, where today we put out for that same job application, we're lucky to get one qualified applicant. We'll get applicants, but very lucky to even get a qualified one. The major one is being a paramedic. You know, that's skilled labor at this point, and there's very few of them out there. And a department like ours that operates an advanced life support ambulance, those are critical positions to bring in. So that's some of our recruitment issues. I think the study did a good job about looking at our comparable communities and looking at some of the statistics and bringing them across the board. You know, I will say you definitely use some caution in comparing, especially with just strictly incident response numbers, because every community gathers that information differently. I'm not going to call out the particular community, but I know one of them on that list uses inspections in that number, which we do not. So, but it still gives a good snapshot of overall budget, overtime allowances, and you know, some of the major expenses that those organizations have. The study recognized two immediate needs. One, to analyze our current staffing model, and the second is to place a assistant chief or a deputy chief position in the organization. Long-term goals, it mentioned a day fire training officer, a day EMS training officer, and bringing each shift up to 6 personnel on duty. So much like we talked about with some of the regional dispatch concerns of depth of coverage, that's some of the struggles that we face in the fire department nearly every day. So, you know, it's not necessarily the emergencies that we're responding to daily, it's the potential emergencies that we could respond to. Ambulances are transporting further and further away. Typically, we only have 4 firefighters on duty a majority of the time. That only leaves 2 more firefighters left in your community for protection. And whether that's the second EMS call or the second fire call, those responders have to make some difficult decisions sometimes on what tasks get done. You know, it's just simply not enough hands to do the work of even at a simple medical emergency. So, you know, some of the immediate, you know, there's ways we could make some corrections and improvements to address immediate staffing concerns without hiring new people, obviously with, you know, some sort of a financial impact. And the long-term goals is, you know, one of the big targets out there is the FEMA grant called the SAFER grant. And it funds 100%, more recently it's 100%, it used to be 70-70-30 of firefighters for 3 years with no commitment to keep those positions afterwards. It's highly competitive. Northborough just received it a couple weeks ago, so it's something that I plan on applying for. If we could address some of the immediate staffing concerns with the bodies that we have on hand, and then, give me 2 to 3 years to apply for that grant for 2 or 3 times in a row, and, kind of see where we're at. I think we have a compelling story and a true need where we would be a competitive applicant.
Interesting. Al? Anything to add?
No questions.
Marguerite?
No questions.
Sorry, I have a question.
Okay.
What did Northborough do to get that grant? Is that something that we understand and can mimic?
Yeah, so I wrote one that was awarded in Foxborough, and I've wrote 2 or 3 since. It's like I said, it's very highly competitive. Some of the larger urban cities seem to get it, a little bit easier because they have the fire problem, they have the statistics to support it. I think it's selling our need with, we're pretty unique with some of our pilot programs.
Mm-hmm.
That's an aspect in this community that's different than others. And just trying to sell. So it's a peer review panel down in Washington, D.C., where volunteers from all over the country come that are all different parts of the fire service that review and score these applications. So it's really, pulling at their heartstrings and really showing our true need over somebody else's.
Okay.
So usually there's about 8, between 6 and 10 awarded in Massachusetts every year.
Oh, so
6 to
it's
10.
potentially possible for us.
Yeah, it's, nothing's a guarantee, but it's...
Not like one for the entire East Coast, for example.
No. So the grant cycle just ended. September 30th is a federal cutoff for the grant award, and they awarded $360 million nationally. So the money's there. It's just convincing our need over somebody else's.
And I would propose the same approach that I suggested to Chief Newell, in that if you could put forth a plan that says, if we've got a 2-year plan, and maybe yours is a little longer horizon than his, but some way to say, here's a staged or phased way that we can actually get to the point of addressing these needs, and you might include the grant things in there as a potential, relief valve down the road here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of thing. Say, here's how we could approach it. That, I think, gives you a much more saleable package to propose to people to say, I've thought about it, I've got a plan in terms of how we integrate additional resources in a way that makes the most sense for us going forward to get to the place where we need to go. I think that's a lot easier for me to take to people and say, this makes a lot of sense. It's important, let's do it. And again, I don't argue with any of the conclusions in there. I think, as for both of you, in this world, minutes matter. And we've got some risk that we're dealing with here. So, thank you.
Andrew?
I don't have any questions.
I don't either, for now, but we will.
Okay. That's-
So I think this is, step 1 tonight, and then we will outline a plan, and we will certainly include advisory going forward, and see where we end up. Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so, let's see. So this is our second public comment. Anybody there? No?
No hands up.
Okay. All right,
We've worn them down.
yep.
That last section in error, so it's just the first piece.
Okay, sorry. Good, Connie. Okay, so we're going to enter into executive session per MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21, and not return to open session for the purpose of discussing strategy as it relates to a successor agreement with the police union using Exemption 3, as the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So move.
Okay, second? Second. All right, all in favor?
Roll call, don't we?
All right, I'm going to humor you again. We don't have to do this until we get in, but we will. Okay, roll call vote. Al?
Yes.
Marguerite? Sam?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
And Cook is aye. All right.